Good evening. Welcome to the September 14th Tri-City Council meeting. We would ask you to turn off all cell phones or electronic devices completely as they make a problem with our sound system. And I'm pleased this evening that we have with us Reverend Dr. Bob Cornwall from the Central Woodward Christian Church, and he will provide us with the invocation, and that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Good evening.
Good evening. Let us pray. God of all peoples, we pray for your blessing upon the community of Troy and on its leaders, especially those who serve on the City Council. May they be attentive to the needs of all people and recognize the seriousness of their calling to serve the community as a whole. In lifting up the council, we pray for guidance in difficult times and when difficult decisions need to be made. The ability to listen to all people and not just those who shout the loudest, remembering that it is often the quietest of voices that offer words of wisdom. The courage to do what is needed, even if it is not the most popular or politically expedient choice. Sufficient grace so as to treat others, especially those with whom one might disagree, with respect and with honor. In lifting up the community of Troy, we pray for those who serve their community in employed and volunteer capacities, those who are working and those without work, the homeless and the well-housed, the fulfilled and the frustrated, those angrily scrawling on walls and those reading the writing on the wall, the lonely and those living in community, those who mourn and those who celebrate. As decisions and choices are made, may we remember the call to be the keeper of our brother and our sister, that we might understand that we are all one human community, no matter our ethnicity, age, station in life, or gender. May we find unity in our diversity of backgrounds, gifts, and concerns, so that the good of all might be achieved. This we pray in the hope that justice and mercy may be served to the ends of our days. Amen. And may we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you in a few minutes. May we have the roll call, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Mayor Schilling?
Here.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Here.
Broomfield?
Here.
Eisenbacher?
Here.
Fleming?
Here.
Howrlack? Kerwin?
Here.
Quorum present. This evening, we're going to begin our meeting with a presentation. It is a proclamation celebrating 30 years for Central Woodward Christian Church, and I'm going to go down to the front to present it, and I ask Dr. Cornwall, and are you going to bring Alice with you? Yes, please do. And I'll meet you down there. Happy occasion.
Yes.
Very much. This evening, we're presenting this proclamation, of course, to the folks from Central Woodward Christian Church for 30 years. I think you'll be very pleased to hear the details of the development of your congregation, your church. Whereas Central Woodward Christian Church has met the religious needs of Troy residents and beyond since first worshiping in their current home on July 16, 1979, and whereas the roots of Central Woodward Christian Church began in the late 1920s when two Detroit disciples of Christ churches, Central Christian Church and Woodward Avenue Christian Church, came together as one congregation under the leadership of Reverend Dr. Edgar DeWitt Jones. A new building was erected on Woodward Avenue, the current home of the Little Rock Ministry Baptist Church, and the congregation held a service of dedication October 7th, 1979. Whereas Central Woodward Christian Church took up temporary residence at the Seventh-day Adventist Church on Crooks Road in 1978, and 1 year later, after the new facility was completed, the congregation took up residence at the corner of Big Beaver and Adams, where they are currently located. Whereas Central Woodward Christian Church continues its ministry that has long been known for its fine music ministry, its preaching ministry, and its educational ministries. And whereas the changes that Central Woodward Christian Church have seen in the last 30 years are remarkable, as they have continuously grown over the years. Throughout the church's 30-year history, the congregation has had outstanding leadership with 4 pastors. Reverend Robert H. Boyd, 1979 through 1988. Reverend Dr. Daniel Kuhn from 1988 to 1999. Reverend Dr. Rebecca Brown from 1999 to 2008. And Reverend Dr. Robert Cornwell, 2008 to the present time. Whereas Central Woodward Christian Church has an active Stevens Ministry program that provides pastoral and spiritual care to members and non-members. It also has an active ministry in the community, which includes participation in the Troy Interfaith Group, the Troy Clergy Group, Habitat for Humanity, South Oakland Shelters, and more. And whereas among its most recent community outreach events, Central Woodward Church hosted the Troy Interfaith Group's International Day of Peace in September of 2008 and a community Good Friday service in April of 2009. And now therefore be it resolved that the Troy City Council does hereby congratulate Central Woodward Christian Church on its 30th anniversary and recognizes its impact not only on its membership, but on the entire community. Be it further resolved, the City Council joins the citizens of this community in appreciation and celebration of Central Woodward Christian Church's 30th anniversary as they enter into their future with dedication to both their faith and expanding their ministry in our community and beyond. And this is presented this 14th day of September 2009, signed by myself and all the members of council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to say a few words?
Sure. And so I first addressed God. Now I can address all of you. I want to thank the council and the mayor for their work in providing us with this proclamation, and want to invite all of you, if you have time, on Sunday the 27th of this month when we celebrate in a service of worship. And Robert Boyd, who was the pastor that led the church at the time of its move from Detroit to this community, will be the featured preacher. But we look forward to ministering in this community and making witness of grace to all. Thank you so much.
This evening, we have no public hearings or postponed items, and so we go to our regular business items. And as is our custom, we call on folks that have signed up for an item that is on the agenda and move those items ahead of other items on here. And so I will go to item E3, and that is the standard purchasing resolution, B, the Best Value Award for Towing Services. And I'm going to call upon Mr. Zerleg and the staff to present, and then I'll call on others that have signed up to speak on this item. Mr. Zerleg?
Thank you, Your Honor, and members of council. I'd like to have Chief Gary Mayer, as well as our Purchasing Director, Susan Learstein, explain the process and nuances of the towing contract.
Thank you. Good evening.
I think I'm going to start tonight by explaining the request for proposal process.
Susan, you want to move the mic up just a little bit? I want to make sure folks
Okay.
in the audience
Can you hear me?
hear well. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
I just want to explain the request for proposal process. It is nothing new to any of you folks. You've seen it all in the past. It is the preferred method for evaluating requests for proposal documents. In this particular case, for towing services, we went through a 4-phase process as part of the evaluation. The first phase was a pass-fail, in which one person evaluated the proposals for the insurance requirements, references, the storage facility, the location thereof, and the years of service. If the companies passed that phase, and in this particular case they all did, they moved on to phase 2 and 3, in which a panel of 3 city employees evaluated both the request for proposal documents and then made site visits to all of the facilities. Each committee member independently scored the proposals as well as the site visit. They were averaged into a single score for each company with the appropriate weights. After that was completed, there was a separate opening for the pricing piece of the proposal. The proposal itself was opened up at the end of July, but the pricing section wasn't revealed until, I think it was August 12th. Once that pricing was revealed, we applied the formula that we use to evaluate proposals against themselves and came up with the highest rated, in this case, lowest priced vendor for recommendation, which in this case was Coleman's Towing and Recovery. That being said, I'm going to turn it over to Gary to kind of explain the police department's philosophy.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
We all know that we've had issues in the past with the towing contractor, and it's very important to the police department to look at this and see what we could do to make sure that the citizens were well served with the towing contract. The citizens got the best service as well as the best price that they could get for the towing contract. The police department looks at the towing contractor as an extension of the police department for all intents and purposes, since we're the ones that typically call for the towing services. So we took it as a reflection upon the police department, the service that the towing contractor gives, the pricing that the towing contractor gives for the tow in and for the tow out. So it's very important to us that this is all done fairly and properly. Keeping that in mind, representatives of the purchasing department, the police department, and the city attorney's office met with the general counsel for the Coleman's Towing. That was Mr. Mark Delden. He represents Fiore Ventures. He's an officer of the corporation, and he said he was authorized to sign. So we met with him. We went through what the police department's values are, what was important to the police department. That's professionalism, respect, accountability, and problem solving. I expressed to him my theory that when we're causing a tow to occur, that they are an extension and a representative of us, and that they're dealing with people who tend to be vulnerable at that time. They're people that may have been in a traffic accident or their car broke down unexpectedly. They're vulnerable, and we don't want them being taken advantage of. We talked about that. Talked about the fact many of those people are under arrest, so they're also very vulnerable then. Talked about how they are viewed as part of the police department function, and everything that they do is viewed as a service that should rise from the police department and should meet our level of service. I discussed directly with them that several years ago, when Coleman's was run by Sam and Shirley Coleman, we had a very good reputation with them. We got along very well. We had very little complaints, very little problems with them. Suffice it to say that that hadn't been what we've been experiencing recently. We've had some issues and problems. We've tried to address those problems. We believe that the contract that purchasing, the legal department, and the city attorney's office and the police department have written addresses those concerns and should give the citizens good service and should make sure they're having quality service and that the prices are fair and what was bid. We discussed the complaints they've had in the past. We reviewed some videos, some police car videos that we had. Their attorney read the contract with the modifications, says it's a very solid contract. He said that it was very comprehensive. It clearly defines our expectations, and he stated emphatically that they will comply with them. He stated they understand clearly that we're going to be monitoring them very closely, and if they fail to comply, that we're going to take the contract from them. He made it very clear that he understands that. We specifically discussed what's called the toe-in, toe-out pricing issue. We specifically went in and stated and made sure that they understood that what we anticipated was the cost of towing a vehicle from, say, an accident scene into their facility was the contractual price, and the cost being towed out from their facility to a location in Troy would be at the contractual price, $48. He agreed that that is what they're going to do. So we went through that issue. I know that was a concern that we all have. We discussed specifics in the contract regarding signage. There will be signs that are on the front of the building that state what the prices are, what the policies, the operating hours are, credit card acceptance, determination of gross vehicle weight, and other matters in great detail. We spent a lot of time with this gentleman. He was very professional, he was very easy to get along with, and consistently said it was their intent to comply with the contract, and consistently said he understood that if they didn't comply, they would lose the contract. That's very clear. We discussed the recent history of the problems that we've had a couple times with him. He understands completely and says they will comply. So at this point, based upon all that, we believe that Coleman's Towing complies with the letter of the contract. And it's our recommendation that, I'm going out of my realm now, so let you take that over at any time.
Yes, it is our recommendation, a city administrative recommendation that we go with Coleman's Towing.
Council may have some other questions too for you, but I have one that comes right down to the main point, and that is the actual cost to the city is only for the city vehicles that they would be towing, correct?
Correct.
The unit cost for towing of vehicles, the price differential between Coleman's, A&M, and Byers, Bob Adams Byers Wrecking Service, there's quite a difference in their unit price. Is that unusual, or is that a usual happening, that there be that much difference? Can you tell by other?
I can tell you from our perspective, and from some police department staff called around and checked on prices for what was going in the area, and the price would be more in line with the middle vendor, A&M, for what other cities are charging for what their towing costs are. Mm-hmm. The price of $48 compared to $85 is quite a bit lower. Does that answer your question? It's quite a bit lower.
Yes.
Which is why, I mean, that's...
I know you're concerned about the cost to citizens that have to have their cars, their vehicles towed. Sure. However, the quality of the service and the other items that were rated higher for the other two when you look at the selection process on the proposal score and the site visit score.
Yes.
Yes.
And yet it was really the price score that determined the final determination.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Council, do you have questions for either Chief Mayor or Susan Lerstein? Councilman Fleming.
Yes, I have a question. As you know, we've had several discussions. I've been following this contract relatively closely, and you've answered all of them. And I think the contract has been changed as a result of some of the conversations that we have, so I appreciate that. I do have a concern that Coleman's has underbid this contract, and that's the reason they're getting it, not on any other rating, because their performance has not been good. You've tried to tighten up the contract as best you can. I've looked at it. I don't know where the loopholes are. I'm afraid there may be some, and what you don't know, you don't know. But one question I have just occurred to me today. Towing those vehicles out, Coleman's has quoted the same rate as towing the vehicles into the impound yard or the storage facility. Assuming that Coleman's tows that vehicle out again, contractually they would charge the same amount. I think it's the $48. What if another party, because Coleman's is associated with more than one record company, what if another party, I'm looking for the loophole here, Susan, as you know, what if another party would have towed that vehicle out, not Coleman's? Could they, in fact, charge a higher rate to our citizens and to the insurance companies?
We clearly went through that issue, and I'm sorry I didn't articulate that previously. We clearly went through that with a specific example, and we're told that we told them it was unacceptable to us that anyone else that's affiliated with them, a subcontractor of theirs, anyone else could charge a different rate. It had to be the same rate, and there's language within the contract regarding subcontractors. Now, if, say, you got in an accident and you had your vehicle towed there by Coleman's at the direction of the police department, and then you decided to use your own record, Mr. Fleming, your record, you'd be responsible for those fees. It's only the thing that we wanted control on was if you did it as a result of the police department or the city getting involved, that you represented us well and people knew what the pricing was ahead of time. So if you wanted your own record service to do it, then you would pay that rate. That would be whatever they charge you.
That's fair.
Does that answer it?
Any other questions, Council, of the Chief or Susan Lehrstein? Yes, Councilman Kerwin and Councilman Broomfield.
Thank you. I have just a couple. I'm wondering, how unusual is it for you to sit down at this length and with this depth with an individual in developing a contract, one that's gone for bid, and that normally after it's gone for bid it would simply be the contract?
It depends on the contract. This particular contract has always been very hard to control, just simply by putting a purchase order on top of all of this. So before this was let out, actually probably right after the opening in 2006, was it? 2006 or 2007, when the last contract opened, we decided that there has to be a contract, an agreement between the parties so that there's no misunderstanding as to what our expectations are. And so that's why in this particular case there is a resulting, contract agreement per se. We have done it in other instances as well. This is not the only contract we do it for.
Thank you. And could you guesstimate the number of staff hours that went into it?
A couple of meetings. It took a while. I would say probably 40 hours maybe.
Oh, I certainly appreciate all the work that's gone into it.
The time for the police department would be significantly more than that.
Yeah,
Okay.
This is just getting the
It
contract
appeared to be
together.
so. And to that, I have a question for the chief. I noticed that as part of the package that some of the towing firms had recommendations from the police department. Since this was awarded to one that we had used, did the Troy Police Department have a recommendation in for this company as part of the package?
No, we did not make a recommendation for this.
Okay.
We were not sought as we're not asked to give a recommendation.
I understand. Some were volunteer. I'm wondering, you had mentioned that there had been a series of complaints that had built up over time during this contract. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm concerned with that.
We did too.
Councilman Broomfield?
Yes, thank you. A couple questions. A series of complaints as we are looking at some of these built up over the last couple years. And I'm assuming that there was nothing in the past contract to address these complaints. You had to allow that contract to run out.
Correct.
There was no safeguards
Well,
that could address those complaints?
correct. That's correct. There were some safeguards to correct some of the issues, but in particular the tow-out issues, the secondary tow was not covered in the initial contract, and so I was really, my hands were tied as far as trying to enforce anything under a second tow. But the other issues that we had moving forward, we did correct. The attempted to correct.
So the Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
the current contract then has something in place, and I'm assuming that
Yes.
you did that. In a nutshell, just in a few sentences, could you help us understand what's in place? I read through the contract, and I see there's going to be an audit.
In this current contract, in the
Yes.
new contract?
Yes.
Yes, there will be actually a six-month periodic review of their services, their financial matters and things like that, the things that have always come to light as a result of residents or anybody who's been, serviced by them, and there were some issues of some kind. So there's going to be periodic audits made just to make sure that they're in compliance with the contract.
Which leads me to my last point. I'm sorry to belabor this, but would we have to put those safeguards, or would we put those safeguards should we have picked another company?
Yes.
Okay, so we're kind of learning from the past, and we would put those in
Yes.
as a result. One last question. Is this a Troy-based?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Eisbacher?
Thank you, Mayor. The sign that you mentioned during the description where it would list the pricing, is that currently in place, or would that be a new item with this contract?
It's new. It's new this time.
Okay.
It was there was some language previously, and we tightened up the language to make sure that the sign was easily viewed from the roadway and easily viewed by people that were approaching the business and had the hours and the pricing clearly listed on it.
Okay.
So that's a correction from some past issues.
So it's clear to everyone doing business with the towing company what the rates are supposed to be?
Yes. And then those rates would be checked against this, Ms. Learstein mentioned, against in the audit. We'd be checking those, spot checking to make sure that the rates are being properly applied.
Okay.
Councilwoman Beltrame?
I have a question about impounded vehicles. When we impound a vehicle, do we take that to our DPW yard or ask that it be taken, or do we leave it at a facility such as Coleman's?
We occasionally take vehicles to the DPW yard that are involved in fatal accidents or accidents at merit where we have to investigate the vehicle to check the integrity of the vehicle and see if there might be issues that led to the accident as part of the accident investigation. Or if it's a vehicle that may have evidence in it that we want to secure, we either secure it in the police department, in our garage, in our evidence storage area, or we'll secure it at the DPW. The vast majority of vehicles that we impound go to Coleman's Towing Yard by an overwhelming number.
And then are those vehicles returned to the owner, or are they sold? What happens to them?
It depends on the vehicle. The vast majority of vehicles are returned to the owner, or the insurance companies take them out. They take them and they get repaired.
Vehicles that are left there, are they then the property of the city, or are they the property of Coleman's? What happens to those?
I can give you slightly more than I'm not as good at this as PSA Wypert is, who handles this for us. He's the expert. I can give you the thumbnail, which is the vehicles that are left there that are abandoned, and they are sold at auction, at a police auction, to pay the fees, the storage fees, and the fees that build up the towing fees in them. If the vehicles are left, if nobody buys them, then they're turned over to Coleman's, to the wrecking company, and then the wrecking company can sell them as salvage or sell them.
So we take them off and treat them like any other vehicle that we sell as part of the, old police vehicles or whatever, and then pay Coleman's their fee, anything that would be left?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's it. And it's a very, very complex procedure by state law to make sure that there's, to do what they can to eliminate any problems or any issues because of the value of vehicles and that. So it's a very complex procedure. And that was a very simplistic explanation that I gave.
Well, I will be upfront about my concern. The rumor that I heard was that those vehicles have not always been properly sold with some wrecking companies. And so that's why I wanted to know if we took charge of them again ourselves and then paid the towing company from the proceeds or gave them back the vehicle after we tried to sell it.
I would certainly hope that any rumor that you heard was not involving our
It was
service.
not.
We have a very good reputation for being very good with that. We have staff that monitors that, and we, to my knowledge, have not had any problems with that type of behavior or activity.
Thank you.
And if someone did have some rumor or some fear of that with us, I encourage them to come to the police department. We'll look into it.
Councilman Fleming, did I see your signal?
Yes, just a couple more points. Thank you for
Yes.
round two here. The question was asked if this was a Troy-based company, and the answer was affirmative, yes. Can you describe what that means to be a Troy-based company? Is the headquarters in Troy? Or?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to explain, that as far as their RFP was concerned, they did respond as being located on Birchwood in Troy. I believe that is their storage yard. Is that correct? I believe that's what it is. And I believe that's where we have all of our mailings and things come and go from that address. Whether or not that's their headquarters, that I can't ascertain, but that is the address that we deal with.
Okay, so I think we can clarify that when we have
Yes.
other people to speak. I do have another point, I think.
You want to think about it while I ask something?
Ask someone else. I want to
Okay.
phrase this right.
All right, okay. I have a question, and
May
that...
I address?
Yes, please.
The card we have from the General Counsel indicates that Coleman's is part of Fiore Ventures, which is based out of Vinewood Street in Detroit.
They purchased they used the property. I
Right.
understand that Shirley Coleman still owns the Birchwood property, which is by the name of the towing company, but
Right.
they purchased the use of it. My question is, if another city or another police department were going to ask you for a recommendation for a towing company based on the previous contract, the previous information that we've had, would we be recommending Coleman's to those other cities, or would we be explaining the difficulties that we've had?
If I was asked, representing the Troy Police Department, for my opinion on it, I would explain the difficulties that we had in the past
Okay.
as part of my recommendation.
And the new wording in the contract that is suggested for this evening is supposed to address those difficulties, correct?
We, along with the Law Department and the Purchasing Department, feel that we've addressed those issues. We've done our very best to tighten up any loopholes. We personally talked to their attorney. I personally expressed all this to him as to what our expectations were and what our response would be if they failed to comply. And it's very clear to him. He stated it was very clear. And we made it very clear that we are not going to tolerate any of the mistakes we had in the past, and that we will void the contract as quickly as we can if they fail to comply with the contract.
Okay.
That was very, very clear.
Was there a point in the city's history where we did not use Coleman's Towing, where we had a joint contract with several towing services based on different size vehicles?
I can draw purely on my memory of this. I know that there was a time period where we did not just use Coleman's Towing.
Right.
I wasn't involved with the contract itself, so I can't give a lot of detail on it. I was on road patrol at the time and knew from dealing with the different record services.
Okay.
We didn't have a yard. We had issues with the yard. We temporarily used the yard behind our training center. It was very awkward.
Okay. Yes, Susan?
I'll
Ms.
just
Ernstein?
I'll just add from the DPW's point, if someone were to call and ask for a reference, I believe the DPW would give them an excellent reference. They have always serviced our vehicles without any issue, and have always taken care of Sam. Even if they were involved and damaged the vehicle at all during transport, they've always fixed them and without an issue. So I just want to add that.
So the problem has not been with city-owned vehicles.
Correct.
It's been with the vehicles of individuals and the charging of them
Correct.
in the different circumstances. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Fleming, did you
I think
ready
so.
for me to call on you?
I think so. Thank you for that breather there, Mayor. What I'm observing here, and the conversations I've had with others and with the two of you and Mr. Zerlag, I really appreciate the time you put into this. But what I sense has happened here, well, I really feel strongly has happened, the trust has been broken with Coleman's. And what we're trying to do is to put together a contract that's tight enough that we can deal with someone we don't trust. That's my feeling. That's my words, not yours. Okay? We're putting together this contract. And I'm sure the city's been treated very well as far as the way they deal with our city vehicles. That's not my concern. It's the citizens of this city that have been abused in the past. And so we're trying to put together a contract that stops that abuse. And I'm very nervous about that because I care about the citizens. While I care about the city vehicles, I'm concerned about the citizens of Troy. I think a 6-month review, and I see that we have in the contract, 6-month review is too long based upon the history and the track record that Coleman's had. The question I have of city management is if this council were to so desire, and if in fact we move forward with Coleman's, and I don't know how this is going to go, verdict's still out, could we easily change that to 3 months review versus 6 months? Is that feasible? Because I'm really concerned, and I'd like this council to see that every complaint, everything that's gone, if we do this over. Is that feasible?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Not a problem.
I believe we can have a periodic review anytime, yeah.
Yep.
We'll just make it 3 months if you like, and we'll have a report
No more.
every 3 months on how things are going, both from a level of service perspective as well as an audit on essentially the second tow.
Not a problem.
That section of the contract would have to be altered then, because the contract now reads 6 months.
Correct.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Broomfield?
If I understand earlier in the difference prices towing, that's really what set Coleman apart from the rest. We're looking at a difference of about $48 per tow versus, what was it, 80?
85.
For some of the other companies,
Yes.
correct? That is a pretty large difference there, so I'm wondering, based on your experience, do you have concerns that in a desire to get the contract again, that they may be losing money over this period of time?
You said losing?
Losing money. If it's 48, but the majority of the other towing companies are 84, 85, that's a third more or more. My math's not that great. But for every tow, how can they afford to do this? I mean, that's the first thing that whenever I have people come to the house and bid, if I get a real big difference and everybody's kind of up here and I got one down here, I have concern about can they really do the job and keep their head above water. Has that been a discussion with them?
I haven't had those discussions with them, but I can't say that didn't cross my mind.
Well, they're here.
But
so
we
could
become a
ask.
liability to them versus income.
Councilwoman Kerwin?
And I know we'll want to hear from other people. Councilmember Fleming had concerns about the length of the 6 months. Should it be 3 months? I have concern about the 3-year contract. I can have concern about going that many years. I agree with Councilmember Broomfield very much, having gone out for bids before on different things. When there is something like this, I suspect there will be overruns down there. There's a way that's going to be made up. It's a huge red flag, in my opinion. And that's why when looking at examples of, oh, yes, it's one figure going in, and then we add a gas charge, and then we get a flatbed, and then we do an additional towing, those multiples concern me. Far more I would be inclined to go with something that looked like a fair price and was the top, received top scores in the other areas. That's my opinion. I may be alone in that, but I'm sure we'll hear from some other people. But that just makes more sense.
Okay. Council, do you have any other questions for either Captain Mayor or Mrs. Thurston? Yes. Councilman Eisenbach.
In reading the contract, there is quite a bit of information about what constitutes a day of storage and what doesn't constitute a day of storage. And then I was looking at the pricing that was quoted per day of storage. And And then I also thought back to your opening statement about how this is a reflection on the police department and on the city, of course. If a person, and the susceptibility of people, because we're giving them essentially a monopoly on our towing, and people are, I can't remember the exact word you used.
Vulnerable?
Vulnerable, yes. The daily charge, say I'm in an accident, I'm in the hospital for a month, and I don't have a spouse or anyone else to get the car. So it's a month times $14 per day until you come and get it, or make other arrangements through your insurance company. That is, you can't, that's a fixed rate for as long as the car's in there. It's not something where they can, after 20 days or after 3 days, put an inflator in. It's fixed.
It's fixed.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Sure.
Council have any other questions? Okay, we'll call on the others that have to.
Thank
Anything else, Mr. Zerline? Presentation from staff or questions from staff?
No, I think that Chief Mayor and Mrs. Learstein did an excellent job in answering all of the questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We had 5 people sign up on this item. The first one is Mark Deldren.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Mark Deldren. I'm General Counsel at Coleman's Towing. I'm here with the principal, Gasper Peoria, and several of our other employees. My chief duty at Coleman's Towing and our other affiliated companies is contract compliance. That's my number one goal. I write policies, I write procedures for our companies to ensure that we comply with all of our contracts. A few months ago, prior to the expiration of the current contract, I tried calling some council members to see whether the city was interested in extending the contract. And the response that I received was that we rely on our purchasing department. And after going through this process, I see why. The process that the purchasing department developed in conjunction with the police department and the legal department is the most comprehensive that I've seen, and the most comprehensive that Gasper has seen in 30 years. It started out with minimum qualifications, and then Ms. Learstein thoroughly briefed the council on the process that was used, and I'm very impressed. It was designed to achieve the best value, and that's what we got. It wasn't designed to ensure a certain company won or a certain company lost, but it was objective. And that's necessary when you're looking for best value. Some of the council had questioned our price of $48 a tow. That's more than what most motor clubs charge, which is less than $40. So it's not it may not be in line with what other municipalities charge, but it is in line with AAA and other motor clubs what they charge.
I believe it was with the other towing services, the comparison, not with what municipalities charge.
I was yes, Your Honor. I was comparing that to other towing, not necessarily to the competitors. Had Coleman's not been awarded the contract, I could not come here today and complain, because the reason why is the process was completely fair. I couldn't ask for a fair process. A few weeks ago, I was in another community, and there was a contract up for approval. The council couldn't answer why they had chosen that particular bidder. They said it was the best value, but they weren't able to point to why. Your purchasing department can tell you why. Our pricing, our site, and our proposal. When you add those points up, we had 86, and our next competitor had 67, the closest competitor. That's a substantial difference. And as to 6-month periodic review, I have no problem moving it to 3. In fact, we conduct daily periodic reviews. Going forward, any charges that are other than the $48 charges have to be approved by a police officer or the city employee on the scene. So every day when our dispatcher comes in, is what they're going to do. They're going to go through any invoice that's not $48. That's going to raise a flag. Do we have permission from the police officer or the DPW personnel? If not, we've got a serious issue. I don't care if it's $1 or if it's $100. There's going to be an issue. while the contract is a 3-year, it's really, in essence, a 1 day. We tow at the pleasure of the city of Troy. In the contract, you are the sole decision maker when it comes to the adequacy of our performance. If we're not performing up to par, we're out. The police chief made that very clear, and we understand that going forward. There's several protections in this contract for both the city and consumers. If we can't make our ETA, the city's got to call on another provider. We have to pay the difference, no questions asked. Our records, our facility, open to the police department at any time, not just 6 months, not 3 months, whenever they'd like. And $48 for a tow, you can't beat that. And we're giving a $5 discount for Troy residents. If the council has any questions of me, I'd be happy to answer them.
If an individual wants to have their vehicle towed to another collision shop or to their home instead of to your facility here in Birchwood, what would happen?
$48.
But they could get towed to the location that they choose?
Yes, provided their location is, I believe the pricing is within 5 miles of the city of Troy. That would be $48. If it's outside, then a mile fee kicks in.
Okay. Councilman Broomfield, did you want to follow up on the question that the chief and Mrs. Thurston couldn't answer, but that they might be able to? Other things?
You go ahead and answer.
Okay. It was in regard to the.
Was it the headquarters?
Yes, the headquartering was part of it.
All of our business is conducted out of Birchwood. Occasionally, maybe some bills get paid from where I'm located at Vinewood, but everything else, our trucks, everything is stationed at the Birchwood address. They occasionally go downtown for repairs. There's no. We don't have contracts with other municipalities where we're running out of another location, but the Birchwood address is our central location, is our headquarters.
And what is the arrangement there for the property? Because you indicated out in the hall that Shirley Coleman still owns the property.
She's a legal title. We are purchasing the property on land contract.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Kerwin?
Did you say that you had contacted some council members regarding this contract?
I had tried calling a few.
And you were able to speak to people at this table?
The only one I got through to was Councilman Fleming.
Yes, Councilman Broomfield?
Two questions. Just curious, because we've had Coleman's for a long time, and then we've run into some problems, sounds like in the last couple of years. How long have you been with the company?
I've been with Coleman since May 11th of this year.
Okay. And then the second question, I'm not even sure if you can answer this, but you could give us an approximate answer. And that is other municipalities that you have contracts with, is it about the same amount of tow charges? I mean, you said $5 for Troy residents discount, but are you contracting with other municipalities in this price range?
This is probably the lowest price that we have. Off the top of my head, I can think of $75. I know we tow for the state police, that's a little bit more than that, but other ones, I wouldn't know. I'd have to look at our records.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure that this is the lowest one that we have.
How many municipalities off the top of your head do you
Just
tow for?
Coleman's only tows for Troy. Our other companies combined, including if I count the state police and the United States Marshals and other governmental entities, maybe right around 10,
Okay.
a little bit more, probably more.
Further questions? Councilman Beltramini?
I'm curious, kind of as a follow-up to Councilman Eisenbacher's question on the impound fees. Is that done like you rent a car, from 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the next morning, that's a 24-hour fee? Or is it done like where you board your dogs? Sometimes they operate like motels, one day from midnight to 11 a.m., and if you're not out, then you pay for a whole nother day? Is it hour by hour? How does that work?
Councilwoman, you're referring to the storage fees?
Mm-hmm. I said impound, I'm sorry.
I want to look at the contract before I give you a definitive answer, but I believe the contract provides that if it's brought in, say on Monday, storage, you can't charge storage for Monday. if it's picked up, there's various different scenarios, and I don't have them memorized, but it would be, say it was brought in on Monday, Tuesday would be the first day. Now, I don't believe that's the case on the contract, because I believe there's there's a grace period, for lack of a better term.
I think you're right. I think that there's like 5 hours the first day or something like that that's free storage, so to speak.
And we have we use a computer program called Tow Exchange, and we're able to input these formulas for storage into that computer, and it's automated.
So the $14 in essence covers a 24-hour period whenever that 24-hour period starts. Is that right?
If you're starting from midnight, I believe yes. That's what it would cover.
That's what I'm asking, because I mean, part of the reason there are 2,200 private vehicle tows on here is because of I-75 going right through the middle of town. And so that is a lot of vehicles. And a lot of them will be brought to your yard, I know from riding with the police department, after midnight. And those people aren't going to be able to pick them up until sometime the next day, if that's soon.
I believe under the contract, say it was brought at 1 in the morning, you didn't pick it up to 6 p.m. Technically that same day, but for people who have had a reasonable hour, it would be the next day. No storage would apply to that in that scenario.
Okay.
Someone else have a question? Yes, Councilman Fleming?
You may have to defer this to someone else in your party here because you've only been with the company since May. You know some of the history and some of the complaints we have. Can you explain or have someone explain why in the past, prior to this contract, you charge so much more to our Troy residents, 3-4 times more to haul the vehicle out of the yard than the contracted price for bringing it in? Now, to keep this, you're going to do the same. But in the past, our Troy residents have been abused. I don't know if you can answer that, but can you tell me why that was the practice of charging $200, for instance, I believe, for some tows to get out of the yard or more, and then exorbitant miles fees and seem to tack on just to take to a local collision shop? Can you explain that?
Yes. Prior to this contract, a second tow would have been a contract between Coleman's and the customer. The customer could choose any other towing company to come in and get their vehicle. That would be why we charge more, because it was a contract. It was agreed upon. Now, if there's any dispute of that fee, there's a process in the Michigan Motor Vehicle Code. If you have an issue with the reasonableness of a tow or the fees, you can dispute it, and if you prevail, you're entitled to attorney's fees. That would be my response. Is that it's a separate contract. Now, in the new contract, these individuals are third-party beneficiaries, and we're bound to charge the $48.
Other questions? Councilman Eisbacher?
You stated in the beginning that part of your job is the contract compliance. I'm curious, how much time during an average week do you spend at the actual towing yards, and how much time are you spending at your corporate office?
Well, our corporate office is a towing yard.
Okay.
Maybe 10 plus acres. So I'd say at least 80% of my time is in the office. At the other times, I'm out and about at meetings.
Okay. Are you responsible for training of the people within your company?
No, just developing the policies and the procedures.
Okay.
Further questions? Thank you. We'll call on the others then that wish to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you. Marvin Reinhardt?
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
I like to support Coleman. And when I had the car problem because of my water problem that I have, that the water was about ready to go over my car, I called A&M, hours. Called the other places, hours. Called Coleman Young. Coleman, come right over, $60. They took 3.5 hours to chop my car out of the ice. $60. I gave the guy a $100 tip with the thanks of it. But really strange from you, Councilman Wade, when you're questioning going to have a towing court about people trying to get stuff out of their car when we have landlords in this city that run the buildings down to junk. We don't have a landlord-tenant court, but we're going to defend junkers that have been in records. But as far as Coleman, they're the only ones that comes quickly, because the complainers, I don't know what, but I bet you people who like the company doesn't have time to, but they did excellent work for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Sawyer?
Good evening, Mayor Schilling and
Good
members
evening.
of the council. I'm here this evening representing A&M Service Center, Inc., a 20-year business resident of Troy and a bidder in this matter. Present with me this evening are Mario and Tony Valenti, the owners of the company. They're right here. And I think all of you probably have read my letter that I sent to you. I know you're all diligent and probably read it. So I'm going to try and just highlight a few other points.
Actually, we received your letter twice because we got the email one and then we got the hard copy.
Oh, I just want to make sure.
So you were
Okay. I'm not good on emails, so I'll rely on somebody else. Okay. I'm also speaking for myself in this matter. I'm a 37-year resident of Troy. I'm a 43-year term as an attorney in Troy, believe it or not, and still going strong. The reason I'm raising the issue on myself as well is when I got into this matter, I've been very frankly shocked by the performance of Coleman. I knew Sam Coleman, I knew Shirley Coleman, I represented them periodically over my career, knew them very well, and they were very, very diligent and fine people. This company has nothing to do with them. I'm not sure whether this council, in fact, from the records I've looked at, the council isn't, although you raised some very, very good questions, believe me, and I'm going to try and skip around some of the questions you raised because you raised some excellent questions. But I'm not sure that you're really fully aware, and maybe it's too much to ask that you would be, of the problems that Troy has had with Coleman's. And I think Gary Mayer, the chief of police, was very candid when he said he wouldn't recommend them without some real explanations. And frankly, after the matters I've looked at, I can understand why. I gave you a one-page summary of 70 pages of complaints that I got basically from the police department. 70 pages of complaints. I tried to summarize them for you that give you an idea of the problems that they have had. I'd like to go through some of these things because I think they are really significant to you. I don't know whether any of you watched Channel 2 News the other night, the Problem Solvers on Channel 2 News at 11 o'clock at night. Very frankly, the Fiore companies have had some problems that have been raised by the problem solvers, and I'm not saying problem solvers are right, but there's been more than one night they spent on the problems that Fiore's had with the sale of vehicles to a vehicle, at least, and maybe more, to police people. And later, the police department conducted a raid, or they called it a raid on TV, in one of their locations, to take an audit on their vehicles because vehicles were not being sold properly. I think this is significant. This was not raised by anybody. This all came up after this contract was awarded, and I believe after the contract was signed. I think this is a very significant event, and I think it tells you something. I don't know how many of you saw it, but it tells you something about this company and the kind of company you're dealing with, and maybe it explains some of the problems that Troy has had over the past 3 years. In addition to my letter to the council, in the 70-page report, they give incident after incident of overcharges, and then Coleman said, "We're going to take care of this. We're going to resolve this. We're going to take care of it." And it just didn't happen. I gave you 7 letters from 2009 that gave overcharges and fuel charges. This is between April and July of 2009. they had conversations with the city back in 2007 about straightening things out. And very frankly, it just didn't happen. I don't know if you're aware of the fact that in early 2007, the Troy Police called in my clients, A&M, and said, how would you like to take over this contract? Because they were having troubles with Coleman. And my people agreed to do it, but it didn't get that far, and it didn't get achieved because I think, I don't know for sure, but I think they went back to Coleman and said, look, change your ways, change the way you deal, change the way you treat the customers. Don't operate the way you've been operating, and we're going to continue to work with you. And I think there was some correspondence that went back and forth, maybe even some agreements, I'm not sure. But they were going to not overcharge people after that. But the overcharges continued, notwithstanding the discussions and conversations that they had. Now, that's secondhand information, but I believe it's correct. And I guess you could probably ask your police department personnel who are here tonight if this is true. Now, because of the past performance, your excellent city attorney, Lori Grigg-Bloom, has had to draft a 26-page contract. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I read it. Number one, I think you'd have to be a Philadelphia lawyer to understand it, with all due respect to Lori. And I didn't understand it. And I think there's a lot of loopholes in it. For example, let's say they just simply don't comply. They just keep overcharging. And maybe you catch up with them. And maybe you slap their wrist, or maybe you fire them. But what's happened to those people in the meantime who have been overcharged? There could be overcharges that could go on continuously in the next 3 years. If you don't catch up with them, what are you going to do about it? And like the general counsel for the company says, $45, $48 is a very low rate. It's an extremely low rate. I'm sure it's a non-profitable rate, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But nonetheless, they as some of you suggested, how can they make any money at that rate? Are they going to operate this at a loss? I don't know what they're going to do, but they can't. And what if they bring in other subcontractors? That contract is not at all clear about what if other subcontractors or other owners of rigs come in and haul the cars out of there, and they charge a different rate. Now, you've tried to cover it under a contract, but why should you have to have a 26-page contract to deal with a situation like this? You shouldn't have to. You didn't have to have it with Sam Coleman, and my people don't have it in the 5 communities from which they have received excellent recommendations. They just don't have anything like that. Troy had also suggested, this didn't come up tonight, but Troy had also suggested having a backup contractor. They didn't want to talk to my people about being a backup contractor. My people don't want to be a backup contractor and have all equipment ready to go as a backup to this company. Why would you have to have a backup contractor? That's what they've talked about trying to do. Why would they need that unless the city is very, very unsure of who they're dealing with here? I have really one final point that I want to make, and that is I had the opportunity to take a look at the bid documents from the County of Oakland Purchasing Department for the same types of towing for 13 townships in the northern part of the county. All that's handled through the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. 13 different communities, Brandon Township, all those townships out there. And their recommended accepted minimum bid, now I'm going to explain so that, was $80 per tow. That's where they expected people to be coming in at, about $80 per tow. Now they did say if you come in $5 under that, or 10 or 15, you can pick up 3 extra points on the overall scale of things. But they were only looking at $15, possibly under $80. None of them were anywhere near $45. They were all, the recommended amount or acceptable amount was $80. I have to ask how we can deal with a $45 situation here. Hey, it's great for Troy if it works, but it's going to take a 26-page contract to do it. And like I said before, what happens to the people who are being had while you're doing your audit? It's probably going to take one full-time employee, and I know Mr. Earl was talking about, I don't know how many employees we can keep on this community before too long. How much time is a police employee going to spend auditing this situation because of the performance of this company? There's an old adage that we all know. When you take the low bid, you probably get what you paid for. And I think that's probably what you're going to have if you go with Coleman's and try and have all your departments trying to keep them on track with this 26-page contract. We respectfully request that this council do one of two things. One, they either award the contract to my client, A&M Service Center, which has an outstanding record and is a local company, has a local place where they take the vehicles here and has an excellent reputation, or at the very least, that you reject this bid and go back and take a little further look at this whole situation. Now, Chief Mayor has said, hey, we've had some problems. By golly, you believe you've had some problems. You've had some major problems. But they're saying, okay, well, we got $45. We're gonna, or 48, I'm sorry.
48.
We like that, and I don't blame them. But what are the chances it's going to work? I think the chances are very good that it's not going to work, and that there's going to be a lot of people who, in the meantime, until this is found out, are going to be paying some fees. It may not happen right away. It may just wait a little while. While they're being carefully observed, they may be careful. But if they use subcontractors, they use other sources, which I don't see anything in the contract says they can't do. If they do it, they can be charging whatever rates they want. And how are those customers going to get their money back? They're not. So I think you've got to, I recommend or ask that you take one of those two steps, that you either award it to A&M or that you at least reject this bid and take a little better look, more careful look at the problems that I think you're going to have. Thank you very much for your time.
Before I call on the next person, I'm going to ask Mrs. Bloom about the question about subcontractors. Would you please explain or point us to the part of the contract where that's dealt with?
The subcontractor portion is towards the beginning of the agreement, and essentially it says that no subcontractors can be employed on behalf of the towing contractor unless there's advanced approval by city employees. So I'm looking for that right now. I'm not sure. I know it's towards the...
So it had to be prior approval?
Yes. Yes.
And then they can use the subcontractor if they don't have their people available to...
Provided that the city gives approval. Yes, okay. That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Bill Byers? And you didn't even have your towing vehicle there. How did you get...
My name is William Byers. I'm the president of Byers Record Service in Rochester. Also a bidder with joint service with Bob Adams and myself. I stood in front of this council 12 years ago and was awarded by council the bid to have it voted down by city council, or awarded by purchasing. Back then, we were bidding at $65. I thought the contract here wasn't to do anything with money, and if Mr. Fiore takes what it takes, he knows what it takes to run his business. I know what it takes to run my business. If he wants to do it that way, that's fine to him. My problem is, I'm a little upset with, we ended up with a zero when we should have been awarded something because, you know, we know what it takes to run our businesses. We should have been awarded something. Just a zero is insulting. And then my another comment is on the tow outs. Is the city going to be able to govern if I get called from a resident in Rochester Hills to come down and pick up a car? Are they going to be able to govern what I charge to go into their yard and tow it out? They can't. And I can't see how the city can govern any towing company to do a contractual agreement with anybody. So, I mean, I don't believe in that. I just don't believe it can happen. Saying those two things, I would like to commend the city and the employees from the DPW, police department, and purchasing for their due diligence they did do. They did an outstanding job. As he spoke earlier the other day, we were both in the same meeting. Hopefully you didn't see it on YouTube. I'll be a lot nicer than I was that time. It was rewarding to sit with people, have them come out and actually care, and look and see what we got, and everything else. I just wanted to take the time to thank everybody from the city because, you know, in the economic times it is right now, it's hard to take everybody away from their jobs to do this. Do I agree with everything? Not 100%, but you know, I feel the money bit takes the towing industry back a little bit, but like I say, that's how he has to run his business. That's fine. But I do want to say thank you to everybody from the police department, the DPW, and the purchasing for taking their time and coming out and seeing what we do have. And just 3 years, we'll look at it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice.
I have a
Mr.
question.
Byers, Councilman Eisenbacher has a question for you.
Curious where your yard is.
My yard
Yes.
is at 399 South Street, downtown Rochester.
Okay. And then I'm curious if you do any contract work for auto clubs.
Do I do yes, I do.
Can you disclose how much they pay for towing?
They vary anywhere from $27 to $55, $60. The difference between a motor club and police towing is motor club, it's like a food chain, how you do your calls. And motor clubs, even on everybody's computer systems, come up red. We have people on staff 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, at a minute's notice to run out and clean up an accident, sweep the street, and everything else. We should be, I don't want to say awarded, but we should get paid for that. We're a motor club. We take them as they come, in order, and everything else. We can have 10 motor club calls, but a police call comes in, and we need to go out there right now. You have a time constraint to get there. You go out there, you do the call, you get it done. You should be paid for that, separate. It shouldn't be nowhere near equal to the motor club.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Fleming, do you have a question for Mr. Byers?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Byers, for coming forward and speaking so frankly. And quite honestly, I agree with your assessment of your 0 points for that final weighted score on the criteria for the price. I think we need to take a look at that because when there are only 3 bidders, I mean, this can occur. But it didn't seem quite fair to me, but that's the formula and the way it works. I think had we had more bidders and been a larger field of bidders, and I think this went out to more than 40, that would not have been the case for you.
Right.
But because there were only 3 and the way the math works, the algebra works, you're 0. And I didn't like that either, so I don't blame you.
I just took it as an insult. 0, give me a point at least, something. But 0, it's 0. I mean, it's like coming in second place. So.
And I think we need
But
to
your
look at that.
scores were good in the proposal
Absolutely.
score and the site visit score.
Mm-hmm.
They were good. Very good.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
No.
Thank you.
Mario Valente?
Thank you, Council, very much for speaking. My name is Mario Valenti, and I'm president of A&M Service Center. And I guess I want to start by, again, thanking the 3 entities of your city about coming out and doing their due diligence. They did a great job as far as coming out, looking at our toll facilities, our records, the way we do business, and everything else that goes along with that. A couple of questions, couple of things that I'd like to say, and we've been in this business a long time, and we do know that at $48 you can't make money. They're just, I mean, I'm being very frank. You cannot make money at $48. It was also referred to by Mark here that the AAA is less. Well, AAA gives you $65 for a police call. That's what AAA gives you. So when we go out on a police call that's called in by AAA, it's $65. So as a motor club, like Bill said, motor clubs usually, you take them on the back burner. They're the last ones you do. You do your other stuff first. The police definitely come first. When you do that, they're willing to pay $65. They know that that is a going rate, or that's a rate that at least you could make a little bit of money at. 48 you can't. What I would like to say is that if you have your tabulation sheets that they gave you with the contract, I guess, the way the tabulation sheet with pricing was, they used a factor of the estimated numbers, 2,200, 25, 250, whatever the numbers were, to make their estimations. And I'm just asking you to do this on my behalf, if you would, please. If you wouldn't take that into consideration at all, and just go by line items, each line item all the way through there, we're under Coleman, price-wise. It's because of the difference of that 48 and the 85, when you multiply that by the 2,200, is that you get such a great discrepancy in price. And that's the reason why we didn't there. The other thing on it, and again, because of the formula, but in the first two parts of the phases, we all kind of shared in the points. In the last phase, where it came to price, when you were the low one, you automatically got 40 points. That puts you way over right there. You don't have a chance. So again, when we were talking to the purchasing department with our pre-bid meetings, it wasn't going to be all about price. It was going to be about qualifications, it was going to be about equipment, it was going to be about location of the yard, about problems that you've had in the past with your cities that you deal with. And here we are going back to the same old thing. It's back to price. It's about price. The other question that I would like to bring up too is in the contract, it said something about that their tow outs by their company, Coleman's, would be regulated at $48. Well, what if one of those other companies come in and tow the car out? What would that regulation be? Could somebody help me explain that as a tow out? So as an example, he has 7 other companies. If Boulevard and Trumbull came into there and towed one of those toy vehicles out to a repair shop or to a collision shop, what would he be able to charge?
Well, we'll ask after you finish. Go ahead.
And that's all. And I thank you very much for your time. Again, I think Tom kind of gave you everything that we had talked about, and you presented it very well. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Thank you. Yes, Councilman Beltrame?
Mr. Valenti, I do have one question.
Sure.
Why does a Troy towing company need a 2-hour minimum as opposed to straight time?
The industry itself requires, you usually say a 2-hour minimum. A good example is in a big truck, when you have a big semi that you're talking about, a big wreck with semis involved. When you first start, it takes time to warm that truck up, get a driver in. You just don't always have a driver available right then and there as soon as that call is, so you've got to get him in. By the time he gets out there, normally it is a 2-hour time frame. That by the time you get out there, you get the accident clean, and you get that truck back to the lot.
But again, on the night you get lucky and you can do it for an hour and a half, you're still charging one of my citizens 2 hours rather than straight time.
We charge it, it's a 2-hour minimum. That's the way we've done it in the years past. It's a national industry. Everybody here, Bill Byers does the same thing. They go by the hour, but it's usually a 2-hour minimum.
Coleman's didn't.
Well, I would have to say that may be so here, but that is not the case in his other contracts.
This is the only contract about which I'm concerned.
Well, then I would have to refer to you and say that you're absolutely right. We just feel that at 2 hours is what the fair rate is for doing a big semi-wreck. This has nothing to do with small cars.
I understand.
This is just with a big wreck.
But you're the one company that is everything right here in Troy.
Mm-hmm.
So for you to say you've got to have that much time, it bothers me.
I'm sorry.
Other questions for Ms. Mr. Valentine this
Yes.
time? Yes. Councilman Eisenbacher?
Same question I asked Mr. Byers just before you, and you already touched on it. Do you do contract work with the auto clubs?
Yes, I do.
What rate do you generally get? Is it the same 27 to 55?
No,
or-
it's 39. It's for
39?
most of the AAA is $39.
Okay.
That's for jump starts and tows. They pay by mileage, anything over that. And accident calls are 65. Or 60, excuse me.
60?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Fleming?
Yes.
Yes, so if you said motor clubs get less, so there you refer to them being the last on your list for service. Police normally get the first call.
Yes.
So in the business generally, you're going to the people that are paying the most. The motor clubs, if you've got a choice, they go lower on the list.
Absolutely. That's just the towing industry.
Just the towing industry.
That's the way it is.
If you're the lower, they get the least amount of service.
Yeah, it's,
But with the price-
if you make contracts with the city that are police towing like the other 5 that we do, you're under strict regulations to get there at certain times. So those are our priorities.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Bloom, again, on the question that was asked about if a subcontractor comes in and does a tow out, what the charge would be?
Actually, Mayor, it's a little complicated to explain that, and it's Mr. Byers, or the person from Byers, is correct in that if it's whoever the person calls to tow out their car, they're going to have a set price. So yes, it is possible that they would call one of the other companies that are owned by Mr. Fiore,
Right.
And they would have to pay whatever that amount is. But the contract does provide, and again, that's the person who chooses that second tow out, and there is some ability for them to choose that. If it is Coleman's that does the tow to another location, then it is limited to $48. And again, there is the provision on page 2 that does say that it's only Coleman's that that you have to have advanced approval from the city for any other entity to tow cars.
Okay. Councilman Beltrame?
So if my car is sitting in Coleman's lot, and Coleman's 2 wreckers are out doing something else, and I call Coleman's and I say, I want that car taken to Fix and Go or wherever, and they have Boulevard and Trumbull do it, they have to call you and say, our wreckers are out, so we're going to ask Boulevard and Trumbull to do it, and the fee will be $48. Because I didn't call Boulevard and Trumbull, Coleman's made that arrangement.
Correct.
Okay.
Councilwoman Broomfield?
That's a piggyback question. I have a piggyback question off of that, and I would need the Coleman representative, sir, if you could just step forward for this question.
Dildren?
Okay, Mark
Yes,
Dildren.
I'm sorry, Mark, thank you. If my car is on your lot and all of your vehicles are busy, and so I called to get my car that day, but just kind of like the priority, I'm way down here now, and I can't get it for 2 or 3 days. Is that a possibility? And then do I get charged for the storage there? Because I'm hearing that everything is prioritized, and it would seem to me if I've got a bunch of cars over here and I'm only going to get $48 to get them out, but I've got other places I can make $60, $65, $70, I'm going to put them on the back burner, and I'm not going to service them first until I'm all done with this.
I don't think that would happen for a couple reasons. Number one, if I told you I can't get to your car for a couple of days, you've got dozens of other service companies that you can call to come get your vehicle from my lot. And what they charge is what they charge. I have nothing to do with that. And then second, the vast majority of our calls are for the city of Troy. So whether I'm going on what you had said, a more important call, it's going to be $48 no matter what. So I'm going to tow it to a body shop or to a repair shop, I'm going to receive $48, or I have to go out and tow for the police. In terms of money, those are the same. It's the same. It's $48. So in a sense, they're going to be of equal priority, but we would go to the police call first, just because we don't want your officers out there waiting longer
Right.
and increasing your overtime rates or just killing man hours. But that they have a choice. I mean, if we couldn't get to it that day, you have a choice. You could call A&M, you could call buyers, you could call anybody, and they could come and get it from our yard for whatever price you arrange with them.
One follow-up question. If you can't get to it, so I choose to let it sit there for a couple days, do I get the charge the $14 a day because I'm waiting for you to tow it?
No. Troy's our only municipal customer. You make up the vast majority of our tows. I've never encountered a situation, and talking with my managers, where we've had a car sit at our lot for several days. Our drivers are often paid on commission, so they want to get as many tows in as they can do. They're hustlers. I mean, they're not. They move fast, not hustlers in the derogatory sense.
Efficient.
So if you want to tow that day and we can't do it, we're going to tell you. And if we do it, and if we say we're going to do it and we don't, and we do it the next day, well, you know what? Shame on us, and you shouldn't use us.
Other questions, Council? Councilman Fleming?
Yes, thank you. Your drivers, are they paid like a flat rate or a commission? Or their pay affected by hauling cars at $48 per incident versus $65 per incident?
Some are affected and some aren't. Some are hourly and some are commission based.
Okay. So the ones that are commission based, working on a $48 tow may not be as effective.
Well, they're
for
not
them.
as effective as they were when it was 65, or if they would be when they're 105, then they're not valuable to us.
Okay.
And in that event, we're going to get rid of them because our employees are a reflection on us, and we don't want an employee who doesn't want to do a tow for $48 because that's what we're going to do for you, and they should agree to do that for us.
Okay.
I see that Mr. Fiore has moved over. I think he wants to talk. So I'm going to call on him this time. Good evening.
My name is Gasper Fiore, and I'm with Coleman's Towing. And I'd like to just answer a couple questions. Probably 80% of our cars that once we tow them, somebody else comes and gets them. Either the owner comes and gets them, the insurance company comes and gets them. It's redeemed by a guy that went to jail the night before. We really don't get a lot of tow outs. And these are my employees here that work at Coleman's. We don't have 5 other municipalities we work for. Coleman's is dedicated to the city of Troy only. That's the only customer we have. We don't have motor clubs up in Troy. We go into police calls. So 95% of our work is all Troy Police Department. So without our police contract, we may as well give our property back and foreclose on it to Shirley Coleman because that's all we have. We paid a lot of money for that and a lot of money for that name. Now, we might have had some mistakes over the years, but I'm pretty sure I could correct all my mistakes up there. So we're just asking the council for, if you got any questions, I'm willing to answer them. But just letting you know that we're here to serve the city of Troy. And most of these guys tow for the motor clubs, and I don't know where the $65 is on an accident call, but most of them AAA calls are with $27, $28, $30 calls on the cost. And I don't know why you should put somebody on the back burner because that's all they know they're getting is $30 when they go out there. It didn't sound right to me neither, but if you guys got any questions, ladies?
I do. Mr. Fiore, this contract is very stringent. And it was necessary because the problems that had occurred previous to this had not been addressed since you've been involved with it. I want to know from you if all of those items that are in that contract are going to be adhered to, or if we're going to have to be back here in a situation where we're going to have to terminate the contract.
No, we're going to take care of that contract. I'm up there at night a lot of times. My help's up there at night. It says you only have to have one driver after a certain amount of time up there. We have 2 drivers around the clock up there. It says in my contract that we're open Sundays. I think if you read that contract, some of these vendors that have been on this contract said no, they're not willing to be open on Sundays. The contract says you have to be open on Sunday, and they put right in there that we're not going to be open on Sundays. So I didn't see where that got brought up.
Okay.
But no, I'm gonna follow that contract. I do a lot of police towing, and I know the priority is. We've got the heavy equipment. There's nothing that we can't do when Coleman's or Troy calls us. We don't have to call somebody else to come help us. We've got the equipment.
Other council members, do you have questions for Mr. Fiore? Any of you? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Did I miss anyone that signed up on this item? This gentleman on the aisle here, I don't have your name written down, but come on up.
I didn't have the opportunity to sign up. I got here a little late. My name is Bill Briggs, and I'm a 15-year resident of the city of Troy. Madam Mayor, thank you for recognizing me, Councilman. I listened to both sides, and everyone here concerned about the towing. I have a former law enforcement experience and career after 32 years and have moved on to other work. I was a victim of Coleman's towing back in September of 2006. My wife was broadsided at Maple and Coolidge and unfortunately had to go to the hospital. I arrived on the scene shortly thereafter, spoke to the law enforcement staff here at Troy, and got permission to speak to the record driver and directed him to take my vehicle to a body shop on Rochester Road by Avon in the city of Rochester Hills. I then afterwards contacted the gentleman up there who was the manager of the body shop and told him to inspect my car. Would he please follow up with Coleman's service on that? He did, only to find out after visiting my wife at the hospital later on that afternoon into the early evening, my car still had not been taken to the body shop in Rochester Hills. When I finally it did arrive, and it was about 6 o'clock that evening, I then met with the body shop person the next day, only to find out that the towing from the accident scene to their service, which is, I don't know, 10 miles at best, was $345. What? $345 for what? Well, $75 was payout sublet at $75. I learned later on $65 for Coleman, $10 for paperwork for the city of Troy. Reasonable at the time. Then there was a $20 surcharge fuel fee. Back then, fuel prices had been going up and down. Unfortunately, it was down at that time. Then there was a carrier charge of $250. What is this? So when I asked Coleman, they said, you'll have to talk to Steve. He's not here. Call back on Monday. I did that. Followed up. And I eventually followed up with the police department on this whole thing. Come to find out, first question out of Steve was, your car was impounded from the accident scene. I said, no, it was not. I directed your record driver to take it to this body shop. I confirmed it with the body shop manager and with the police and law enforcement who would have directed the impoundment. Well, then it wasn't that. We were busy that day, and we couldn't take your car directly to the body shop, so we chose to take it to our yard. So then from your yard that you towed an hour or two later to the body shop, it cost us $270 more. It didn't cost you anything more, sir. Don't you have insurance? What matter does that? Your insurance company will pay this. That has no bearing on your towing charges of $345. And so I asked the body shop not to pay the fee until I talked to my insurance representative, Allstate, and informed them, and they were looking into it, and informed the police department. In the meantime, Coleman called the body shop and said, we want our tow fee paid. The body shop was not going to interfere with this problem, and they paid it. So all of this went on about 26-page contract and about A&M, Coleman, and these other people talking about whys and all of this. I'm a face of a $345 charge from this company to tow my car after my wife was involved in an accident in the city, 10 miles or less, to Crispin Lincoln Mercury on Rochester Road, south of Avon. Here's a copy of their towing charges. October 3rd, I sent a letter to the police department at their request. I had the body shop manager write out a long letter to them at their request. October 4th, another one to them, to the police department, all about this incident. And I was very upset to sit here and listen now to the fact that this company continued their practice several years after this kind of charge. What is a red herring? What is a red flag? $48 versus a more reasonable standard from anybody else. Yes, we're in trying economic times, and we should look at the best price. But is the best price going to deliver the citizens, me, the best service? The answer clearly is no. These people found a way, and they are going to do it again. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Briggs. Is there anyone else that I've missed? Okay, the item is before us. Council, do you wish to, this is usually the time to take a break. Do you want to finish this up and then take a break? What is your pleasure?
Take a break.
All right, we'll take a 10-minute break. We will return at 9:15. We're back on item E3, which is the towing services contract. And it's back at the council table to deliberate. Council members, did you have further questions of staff at this point? I know we've asked the others as they've come to speak. Was there anything from staff that you needed to ask as we deliberate further? No, seeing none. I am not going to move a resolution at this time, but make some comments here. I know that the resolution in the packet indicates the award to Coleman's Towing and Recovery. I personally have difficulties voting for that for several reasons. I think that given the record of service and the problems involved with that service, even with the new contract in place, that we're going to have difficulties. The second reason is that the amount of differences between what is actually costing the city for city services between the first two bidders is roughly $2,000. The amount to each individual that would have to have their vehicle towed, if you look at line by line items, is not that different. The initial pickup, everyone's talking about the first two lines here. Frankly, I'm just ready to move on to a different towing company at this point. That's my comments. I don't know how the others feel, and if someone wants to move a resolution at this time, but I thought I should get my comments out there.
Madam Mayor?
Councilwoman Kerwin?
I'll move a substitute resolution. Resolved that Troy City Council hereby awards a contract to provide 3-year requirements of towing services for the City of Troy's Police Department and Fleet Division with an option to renew for 3 additional years to the bidder A&M Service Center Incorporated of Troy, Michigan.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Kerwin, seconded by Councilman Fleming, that we award the bid to A&M Towing Service. Discussion of the motion.
Madam Mayor.
Councilman Beltramini.
So this means that, and I understand Councilman Fleming's concern and his comment earlier that Coleman's kind of abused the trust and now it's broken. Staff worked hard to nail down a contract that addressed those concerns. And so instead of honoring that staff work and the process, what this council is planning on doing is awarding a contract to a towing company that will charge the individual person with a vehicle almost twice as much for that first tow. That's exactly what you want to do. Mm-hmm. You feel strongly enough about that, and you still have concerns. I'm not sure I share that. I just wanted to make it clear that someone could have their car towed for $48 with Coleman's, or almost twice that much at $85 from the other one. And that there will be a minimum charge on large vehicles.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Kerwin?
Also looking at all the costs going down in the second column. So the first cost looks 48 compared to 85. All of the costs going down then look differently.
Most of them are higher.
And quite fair. My concern is regarding the specific examples and the very personal example that was last given, in which not only does an individual bear expenses, but the insurance company that received the bill for the specific example that is mentioned, the hundreds of dollars is something we all bear. So not only Troy residents, but then someone who comes in from Rochester Hills, and then all of us bear it when it all goes at those exorbitant additional prices, unexpected. We all bear that and have done so since 2007, as the example was given. If, as was mentioned, Mr. Byer comes up and says 12 years ago, the unit cost to tow, which was fair, was $65. Now, how can this happen at $48 when there's a recognition in the industry that they're not making money on that? There is something alarming in this, and I'm not buying it.
Councilman Fleming?
Madam Mayor, to understand Councilman Beltramini's $37 difference per accident is, significant. That's hard cash. My concern is, because we've got this multi-page contract, we're going to have to audit, because the trust has been broken based upon past performance. We're going to take police time, officers off the street. We're going to take purchasing time. People who are stretched already and in the future are going to be stretched even more to do non-value added business. And to me, that's a real cost to this city, to do non-value added business, to audit, to make sure that we're living in compliance with this agreement. Because evidence, past history, many times indicative and predicts the future. And I appreciate what you've done. I know you've sharpened your pencil, you've done that, but the trust has been broken, as far as I'm concerned. I think we have to audit whoever does it, but I think in the case with Coleman's, it's not the same company that it was years ago. And the change, ownership has changed, the trust has been broken, and to try to audit and spend all that manpower. And I'd like to defer to Mr. Zerlag, our city manager, because I saw him trying to get the mayor's attention, if we could, Madam Mayor, because I don't know how many hours it would take, but purchasing stood up here and said they spent a lot of hours, and I know you have, because I spent a few with you and with the police department as well, with Chief Mayor, agonizing over this agreement, trying to make sure that it was really tight. And I do think we have a good agreement. Now my concern is really auditing and maintaining and ensuring that we can enforce this going forward. And that's a concern of mine. That's a real cost.
Mr. Zerline?
Sure. And what I'd like to do without, I'm going to have to put Chief Mayor and Susan Learstein on the spot. Call them up, please. And as you're walking up, I'd like you to try to figure out, kind of guesstimate, how long you think it would take for contract compliance should the agreement be awarded to Coleman's Towing Company. I know your answer is going to be subjective. I'd like you to give it in light of any other towing company that may be awarded.
Hey, is it okay if I ask PSA Wiper, who does this job, one quick question, sir? Half your time, Russ? Do you anticipate it's half your job doing this? At least. So I have to...
Can't hear.
Captain Mayor, we can't hear you, so
sorry.
would you move the mic up and then
Certainly.
ask again? Thank you.
My intention was to ask him... Thank you. My intention
Oh,
was
did
just
I
to
do
ask
that
him...
again? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm getting in trouble.
It's quite all right. My intention was to merely ask him the amount of time that it takes. I didn't want it to be an interrogatory back and forth between two of us. I apologize for that. Sure. We anticipate that it would take between half and two-thirds of his regular job to do this. He has other duties and responsibilities in the police department. Now that is everything that he does with the towing contract. Now if the question is additional time to specifically monitor some of the events within this contract,
Well, we're going to have to move the mic again here because we can't hear.
We'll add at least an hour a day.
Okay, so you spend half your time, regardless of who the contractor was, and you'll spend about an hour a day on monitoring. Is that regardless of who the contractor is as well?
Right.
Is that,
yes.
Okay.
Okay. And Councilwoman Kerwin has a further question.
And also there were regarding calls, the permission calls, if it's subcontracted out, would you, Madam Mayor, who would be fielding those calls and how much additional time? Because that was not the case before.
that would be a guesstimate on our part, because we don't know how many times we would actually be looking at those circumstances when we would have that.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilwoman Broomfield?
The first thing that came to my mind when the resolution went out was a question of this council. Did we intend to, the contract that has, a lot of time has already been invested, and basically we just inserted a different company's name, so would we not be using that same contract with the same guidelines, or no?
That's correct, and the
I'd ask
PSA
our city
will still
attorney.
be spending half of this time regardless of who the contractor was, and
Right.
about an hour a day on contract compliance regardless of who the contractor was.
Okay. And Mrs. Bloom, on the contract?
Yes, Mayor. Actually, you can't substitute it in. What I would recommend is if council chooses to go forward with this, there is other language in this resolution, including the requirement for them to submit the proper insurance documentation, and also you should have something in there, some language that requires them to enter into a contract. And again, it would be subject to satisfactory execution of the contract, which would again reflect a lot of the things that were in the bid and will be very similar to the contract that was drafted and is in your packet.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Councilman Eisbacher. Is this for
Not the same, different subject.
Chief Mayor
Different subject, no.
Susan Learstein? Thank you. Different subject, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
I'm having a lot of difficulty with this because we're talking about a decent amount of money being charged to the residents and visitors of our community. We're looking at a $90,000 difference per year between the two. And we've had council members speak very strongly about an item that was about a fifth that much, and speak about it repeatedly. And the thing, I think all the points about the problems with the past service are valid and very, very critical. But when you have bad service and you can't do anything about it, there's two problems. You don't have a remedy and the bad service. Our new contract has remedies if bad service continues and if it's not understood. There was a process put in place to deal with future bad service. I do believe the formula in our bidding is flawed when we have small numbers of bidders, just because it doesn't, it doesn't give any points to the lowest bidder out of 3, which is not necessarily representative of the gap between the bidders. And we may need to look at a better algebraic or mathematical formula when there's low quantities of bidders versus large quantities of bidders, because I think when we do have a large number of bidders, this formula is very good. I am struggling with awarding a contract where we, in my opinion, we made a bulletproof contract based on feedback from the competitors, based on feedback from residents, based on the problems we've had in the past. It's a very tight contract. I have a hard time going $90,000 more per year in the fee.
The reason that I would support giving the contract to A&M is that, which was the second lowest bidder, is that we have awarded contracts before not to the lowest bidder, but to the second lowest bidder based on the kinds of service or the quality of the service that we're going to be getting. And in my viewpoint, after reviewing all of the information that we received and comments about the service that they've had previously, I just am convinced that it's better for us to go with a different company other than that one we've had. And that's why when it was moved and seconded by Councilwoman Kerwin and moved by Councilman Fleming, I'd be in support of that. I realized the contract would have to be adjusted, all those things worked out with A&M. I just think it would be better service. And yes, the initial cost to an individual to have their car towed would be higher than what the unit price in the contract was. But in looking at what the towing costs are in other communities and in other areas, I don't think that's out of line. I really don't. So,
Here.
yes. Councilwoman Broomfield?
Yeah, a couple questions. What was the, I'm not sure who would know this, but what was the previous contract tow cost? Was it less than 48? More than 48?
Mrs. Leierstein?
Okay, so
well, we should ask Mrs. Leierstein?
Yes, it was $65 the last time.
see, this is where I'm really having a hard time. I'm just trying to stand back and be objective and understand that we've got a good contract to close up some of these gaps. But in the previous contract, they were at 65. And now they're at 48, and I just don't know how they can make a living. It's not my job to balance their books, but that gives you cause for concern. The other question I had, Councilman Eisenbacher, that $90,000, was that the city cost,
No.
the difference?
No.
Where did you get that 90 from?
At the last line.
I know, I have a hard time finding that graph.
Yeah, it was service private vehicles. There's very minimal difference on the city towing.
Right.
Okay,
City towing is
so
the
when we
smallest.
throw around the 90, we're not talking city.
No,
We're
the
talking
city
Charged to residents and visitors.
The thing that is just my 2 cents here, I feel like we're awarding something to a company that fortunately has a bad track record. And we've made a lot of promises, and we do have things in writing, but it still leaves a bad taste in your mouth. If the contract tow was up at least at 65, what they did before, and most people, you'd say that's crazy, but anybody can go in and say they can do something for a certain amount. The question is, can they? And what's the market hold? I mean, what are other companies doing? And that's the piece. We're making a big assumption here that $48, which is considerably less than they did it for the last 3 years, is going to be enough. And I'm really struggling with that.
Those figures were on page 29 if you want to look for them. Councilwoman Kerwin?
And truly, when you look at the proposals, what I'm concerned about is looking at the other categories, because there is a way to outsmart the system, and it was pointed out early in the formula. If you deep 6, if you go really low on the tote, then the proposal score doesn't matter, the site visit score doesn't matter, and I look at those weighted things compared. That matters. When you ask point blank, would you recommend this firm again? That matters. The record does matter. I think we have to use common sense and be smart about this. And I think that the smart decision is to go with A&M.
Further discussion of the resolution? Councilman Eisenbacher?
Later in our agenda, we have a couple items where the bidders come in substantially less than our engineering estimates for them. At the end of our agenda, we've got a item to set up a meeting time to discuss our decreasing tax revenues. We're in a period of time where prices and values are deflating. And the companies and the people that are figuring out how to be successful with this deflation in prices and values are going to be the ones getting the business and being able to get by. I think it's, in my personal day job, we have to be more competitive in spite of the fact that the volumes are less, and we're selling less, but we have to do better for a less price. I mean, and I see this contract, the pricing, to be in line with the market conditions. The only hang-up I have is the past performance, and I believe the past performance is being addressed by the contract. The open concern is how much is it going to cost to administer the contract?
Further comments, questions? Councilwoman Beltrini?
Question for the city attorney. And I, again, understand past performance and the like. Added nickel and diming of the average citizen. And keep in mind, the other thing I'm thinking is folks often end up with a tow charge in Troy through no fault of their own. They run out of gas, their car is left on I-75, and we tow those cars. We don't leave them for 48 hours like a lot of communities do. So they can run out of gas, and by the time they get back, their car is gone almost. So it is of some concern. It's not like they're drunk. It's not like they're in an accident. So the nickel and diming, the $20 surcharge, the paperwork fee, all of those kinds of things, are they still allowable in this contract?
Mrs. Blum?
No, actually, there were concerns that were brought up, and that's one of the things that the contract was designed to do, is to say that you will have this amount, that will be it, other than the mileage if it's beyond the perimeter. I mean, that is something that would be additional, but everything else is included in that towing fee.
So it's $48, in essence, turnkey, pretty much anywhere in Troy.
Correct.
Thank you.
Further discussion of the motion?
Mayor?
Yes, Mrs. Blum?
May I just ask for some clarification?
Yes.
Is this resolution, are the second and third paragraphs included?
Yes. The intention is to include the second and third paragraphs. Thank you for pointing that out.
Councilman Fleming?
Madam Mayor, before this vote, I'd just like to say that I really do appreciate all the time the purchasing department's put into this. You guys have done a great job, and the police department as well. The city manager, the time you take with me, I certainly appreciate it. But it comes down to a gut check here, and you did nothing wrong. You did a great job on the contract. It'll be applied to whoever is awarded the business, and however this comes out, I do appreciate all your efforts. It's been a great job, and a pleasure working with you on it.
Further discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Councilwoman Beltrini?
If this motion passes as resolved, will that contract come back to us? What degree of change needs to trigger it coming back to us?
Mrs. Blum?
Mayor, the things that will need to be changed, obviously, are the identity of the contracting parties, and then also the prices would need to be modified. I don't anticipate that there will be substantial revisions. Other than that, they would need to be consistent. And there was a draft contract in there. It's been tweaked a little bit, but I anticipate it'll be very similar, accounting for the differences in the bids. If it is substantially different, I can bring it back. Or if it's council's desire, you can put it in the resolution that you want to see it as well.
The reason I asked the question was Mr. Sawyer may have been a bit facetious, but he said there was no need for a 26-page contract, and he didn't even understand it. And so to move his firm into this contract, I would think for his firm and Mr. Sawyer to be sanguine about it, it might have substantial changes. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
Mr. Zerlike?
Your Honor, I spent some time with staff as well, and when we took into consideration developing a contract to close loopholes, it wasn't a contract to close loopholes for Coleman's Towing. It was a contract to close loopholes for any towing company. And we spoke about things such as method of payment, overcharges, storage location, complaint procedures, second tow charges, and response time to clear the roadways. And that's of salient concern to us. You know, when an officer at 3 o'clock in the morning has to clear an intersection, he needs someone to clear it immediately and in a good response. I think that the 26-page document should stand in situ or in place where we merely change the name of the firm, if that's your desire, with all other conditions applicable, with the exception of pricing. But second tow charges and other charges that we have in terms of a methodology need to remain the same.
Mayor?
Councilwoman Broomfield?
I would agree with our city manager on that recommendation, and I felt that way when the resolution was first put out, that we're still talking about pretty much the same contract, other than a few minor changes, because we don't want to have to deal with that with any other company, should we go that route.
Further discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Mayor Schilling?
Yes?
Councilmember Beltramini?
No.
Broomfield?
Yes.
Eisenbacher?
No.
Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
Motion passes. I'm assuming that the folks are going to get together. You're going to contact Mr. Sawyer and get
I'm
this
sure
all
Mr.
set.
Sawyer and I
Okay.
can work this out.
All right.
We have no problem.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you're going to have to sit down and get everything all set, and then it'll come back, and then I have to sign.
Before you sign it, check
Yes,
it.
I will. I'm going to read it just as I read all of this before I sign it. Okay, thank you. The next item that's on the agenda is that people signed up for. Let me look here. E5, Mr. Reinhardt, you signed up for the designation of voting delegates at the National League of Cities business meeting. Yes, please come forward.
My concern is that I don't know, I know the organization of the National League of Cities, their primary job is to import immigrants to the United States, which states very well on their webpage all over the place. And I don't know, how is our Troy people going to vote on their agenda? Because as when I get sent as a representative from my organizations to a national organization, I know the agenda. Our club votes on exactly how I'm going to vote because I represent my club at this point. I'm not debating. And somehow we're going to designate two people, pay city expenses to have these people decide ideas that nobody in the city is even going to know that the city of Troy decides to this organization.
Actually, Mr. Reinhardt, they do send all of the voting information ahead. I'm going to call on either Councilwoman Beltramini, do you wish to respond on that?
Because I like to read.
We've had the voting before on items that come before National League of Cities when they've been delegates. It's always provided ahead of time.
Because that is a Democratic front.
Do you want Councilwoman Beltramini to respond?
Yeah.
Or the city manager.
Or the city manager?
I mean, I
Go
would.
ahead, because you've been the delegate many times.
I have been the delegate many
Yes.
times, and they will, the final language, Mr. Reinhardt, is not presented ahead of time. The final
Right.
language for the resolutions is decided at the convention.
So it's decided by one or two people that was picked by the people up there to represent the city of Troy to agree or disagree, and then all these people up here have just agreed to whatever this organization just agreed to.
No,
and
no.
with this coming, I know, I understand. But that's what you do. You say, Troy says, I represent Troy and I support this issue, whatever that issue is.
Actually, anyone who has been to an NLC meeting when I've been a voting delegate can tell you I have brought the whole convention to a stop, saying, no, we can't support
Well,
that.
I'm just concerned because we're volunteering expenses and all types of stuff to an organization like I feel doesn't represent the United States. They represent how to import more immigrants. And just because Troy is one of the largest immigrant importing cities, we don't need to really support that. And that's the only thing I'm concerned with. But I'm just one vote to this city. And, you know, it's just strange how people just vote, speak for everybody.
The item before us then is item E5. Does someone want to indicate who might be attending and then who, if they're going to designate as delegate and alternate?
I'm going.
Are you,
Councilman Einsbacher?
I was just going to ask who's planning on going. I heard Councilwoman Beltramini say, Councilwoman Kerwin.
Councilman Kerman, I don't know.
I'm not really planning, but if I was alternate, that would make sense. I do have frequent flyer miles, but I'm not planning to attend. In the event that Councilmember Beltramini became ill, I could do it on frequent flyer miles.
Okay, so I can move the resolution as Councilwoman Beltramini as the voting delegate and Councilwoman.
Can you
unless
speak
you're,
in your mic?
oh, sorry.
I'm not sure of my plans
No,
yet.
I'm
so
leaning back.
We're going to switch. Sorry.
Or I didn't ask. Are you going, Mayor?
I'm not sure of the plans yet, so go ahead with those two.
Okay. Resolved that Troy City Council hereby designates Councilwoman Beltramini as voting delegate and hereby designates Councilwoman Kerwin as the alternate voting delegate to cast the vote of the City of Troy at the annual business meeting of the National League of Cities to be held November 14th, 2009 in San Antonio, Texas.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Eisenbacher, seconded by Councilwoman Broomfield, that we approve the resolution as read. Discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Councilman Fleming.
just for clarification, so really only one person's going unless Councilwoman Beltramini can't go, then Councilwoman Kerwin would step in, but only one person's going, correct? Gotcha.
At this point.
Good.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilwoman Beltramini?
If I could also reveal that over the last 3 years, it has been the Michigan Municipal League's practice to pay the expenses of the immediate past president to this meeting, and so it is my thought that MML will pay my expenses. So there will be no cost to the city for me to go.
Which is another good reason to have you be
If I take a
delegate.
class or something like that, but yeah.
Good, thank you.
It's another good reason to have you be the delegate.
I try to get as much out of our dues as I can.
Vote, Mrs. Barthana?
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Broomfield?
Yes.
Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. E6 is City Council absences, and Mr. Reinhardt, you signed up on this one?
Yes, I have. Since you moved the public comment further back in the meeting, I have to be here, so I might as well comment. Since we're supposed to Troy, the city of the future, as far as these absentees goes, there's a way that you can be anywhere in the world and show up with your face right by your chair, because we have been told continually how smart our school systems are and how quickly or advanced Troy is, and I don't understand why do we got to use archaic methods to show up at these meetings, because some cities broadcast you can have actually talk to somebody from your home to a council meeting. And I think it should be somehow put forth, because we do have some of the biggest, best schools in the city, as far as you got Walsh College, IT&T, whatever those people are. They know everything there is about communication. I think we could be the example that they could use of why you should, if you want to volunteer for public service, that you can still be here and you can be in Africa or America because of today's technology, telephone. My kids see one another all over the place. I don't see why people who volunteer can't at least do that.
Okay. I'm going to call on Mrs. Bartholomew because we've talked about this before. Mrs. Bartholomew, are we allowed to be voting in abstention from the meeting? I mean, in other words, could we have a video of that person instead of the person being here?
Mayor, actually,
And
I'll
Mrs. Bloom?
take
Oh,
this
okay.
question. And,
I see you. I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
thought- okay.
Mayor, this is one, the Open Meetings Act does govern. It does not allow for an abstention. It requires presence so that the members of the public can see all the deliberations and everything that's going on. So it is not allowed to do teleconferences or things like that under the Open Meetings Act.
Though you could vote for the President of the United States over the computer with no confirm if that's really the person voting.
Right. Anyone else on this item? There is a, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Marianne Bernardi, I saw part of your name on here, not the whole name, and then you were on the next one, so I wasn't sure.
Thank you.
You're fine.
Thank
Mrs.
you. I'm on
Bernardi.
E7 as well.
Yes, thank you.
And, no, I wanted to speak on this. I think it's important. In the last council meeting, Councilwoman Kerwin proposed limiting public comment and pushing it to the end of the meeting.
No, that's not
No,
true.
we're on the city council absences.
No,
but that's not true.
Okay.
I'm
That's not
going
true.
a
I'm
long
sorry.
way around,
Okay.
but
All
I'll
right.
get there. To the end of the meeting, where it would have little or no impact on the decision that you make at the meeting. Her proposal would have limited the time and would have pushed it to an irrelevant spot on the agenda. Fortunately, the rest of you stood up against that and protected the public from being disembarred from this body. And I wanted to make this comment that if I had a choice between a council person who wanted the public out of the way and one who stood strong for the public, in a New York minute, I would choose the council person who stood for the public. Sorry, I'm a little bit clumsy tonight, I don't know why. Councilman Martin Hauerleck has been elected over and over and over again by his constituents to serve on city council. He has also served not only on city council for years and years, he has also been a precinct delegate for his neighborhood. He has been elected over and over and over again for that office as well. I know because I have walked his neighborhood with him in the past, and I have heard personally how much his constituents respect and even love him. They know, and they've told me this, that he is always there for them. He is always there to represent the public. Always. I am honored and proud to have been able to be one of his supporters. It is heartbreaking to me, and probably to the rest of his supporters and constituents, to watch a person who has given so much to this community over the years come under repeated attack at this council table by Councilwoman Kerwin. It is also ironic to me, since Councilman Kerwin ran on a platform of wanting to unify council and to bridge the gap between council members. Unfortunately, her actions on council have had exactly the opposite effect.
Ms. Bell, I have to interject something here, Mrs. Bernardi. First of all, the item that you signed up for is the resolution about city council absences. It didn't have anything to do with the items that you mentioned. Secondly, it was not Councilwoman Kerwin that brought forward the resolution of moving public comment of items that are not on the agenda to the end of the meeting, but it was myself and Councilman Fleming that asked to have it on as an agenda item, and it was Councilman Hauerleck that moved to have it placed after regular business. It was not to shut the public out. It was simply to move the regular business items, which this item is a regular business item, up at the beginning of the meeting, and then to have comments on items that were not on the agenda. Councilwoman Kerwin's suggestion was that we have comments at the beginning of the meeting on any item on the agenda or off the agenda. So hers was to have it at the beginning in support of public comment, but that people speak once. Okay. That was not in favor. So I need to correct your comments.
Okay. Could I comment to
yes.
that? Thank you very much for that correction. I accept it, and thank you for it. And the reason I didn't know that is because of the blackout.
Yes, the TV went off.
And I talked to Cindy Stewart and found out what happened. I tried as much as I could to find out what happened. It went out right then. In fact, I did email one of the council members and asked them specifically who brought that forward, and I was told it was Councilman Kerwin. So
that was incorrect.
Okay, then I do apologize. I just want you to know I did my due diligence as much as I. But my comments still stand. I mean, the feeling behind them, the observations. This isn't something that just came up in my mind and my heart over this one instance. It has been long period of observing the bickering on council, and it's been very much a disappointment to me. Thank you.
The item before us is city council absences, and there is an amendment, a suggested amendment, if we wish to change the rules of procedure, or if we wish to keep them as they are, because we've been informed that absences for being out of the county or being ill are automatically excused. Is that correct? Mrs. Bartholomew, would you like to clarify, or Mrs. Bloom? I know that when we have a meeting, a separate meeting that is called, a special meeting, there's that wording in the charter. Mrs. Bloom? Mrs. Bartholomew?
That particular section of charter is pertaining to compulsory attendance at special meetings. And this provision to automatically excuse only pertains to that section, not the regular council meetings and not special meetings where that has not been enacted. So those are not automatic absences.
Okay. That, when we stopped excusing members back in February, that's what we were told. So that's why I mentioned that again. We were told that we didn't need to have, that's why we stopped excusing. Otherwise, we would have just continued. Mrs. Bloom?
Actually, Mayor, Ms. Bartholomew and I have worked on this, and we did actually send a letter, a memo, that stated that under the Open Meetings Act, that the only thing that was required under the Open Meetings Act was to list who was present and who was absent. Right. I believe that there may have been some confusion about that. But Ms. Bartholomew is correct in that there is no automatic excusal from regular council meetings for being out of the county or being ill. However, council does have the ability to excuse the members of this body for those reasons or for other reasons if it so chooses.
Okay. Thank you.
There.
The items before us, Councilman Eisbacher?
First, I'd like to thank the staff for pulling this together. I appreciate it. And I would like to move the resolution as printed in our agenda packet. It's long enough that I don't want to read it.
Support. Moved by Councilman Eisenbacher, seconded by Councilwoman Broomfield, that we approve the resolution as printed in the agenda to amend council rules of procedure.
Discussion. Just
grammatical.
There's a dangling on Rule 21A. If we could just shift around so we could have a grammatically satisfying sentence. Instead of council members desiring an excused absence who, my suggestion would be it would be council members who are unable to attend a council meeting and desire an excused absence shall notify. Would that be acceptable? Yeah.
Yes.
Does that have to be an amendment?
Mayor?
Yes. Councilman Eisbacher?
I'd like to move an amendment to change 21A. Good idea. Council members who are unable to attend a council meeting and desiring an excused absence shall notify the city manager, city attorney, and city clerk of their absence in writing prior to the meeting and indicate the reason for the absence.
Second. Moved by Councilman Eisbacher, seconded by Councilwoman Broomfield, that we amend the resolution changing Rule 21A to the wording as stated. Discussion?
Good catch.
All set? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Broomfield?
Yes.
Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that. When we stopped excusing people, it was confusing, and so that's why I bring it up, because that was my understanding of what had happened. So if I was incorrect, I stand corrected. Mrs. Bartholomew?
Yeah.
Yes, another vote, because that was on the amendment. Now on the main item.
Councilmember Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Broomfield?
Yes.
Motion passes. And Councilman Eisbacher, comment before we go to the next one?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. By coincidence, we passed this and we have a member missing and we didn't excuse them, that person. Right. Would it be proper to excuse them under this rule? Are we already out of order, or
When does that come up in the agenda?
suspend our rules of procedure?
Yeah.
And
Mrs. Bartholomew?
Since you are past that portion of the agenda, it would be most proper to suspend the rules, add it to the agenda, and then vote on it at that time.
At this point?
You can do that at this point or at any time, as long as you do a suspension
Okay.
of the rules.
We can go through the items that, people are here to speak on other items, and then we can bring it back up. But you're right to catch that. Thank you. Okay, E7 was the scheduling of a special meeting to discuss the city manager's 6-year organizational restructuring plan for the city of Troy, fiscal year 2009-10 through 2014-15. And Mr. Zerlag, did you wish to speak? And we had a couple audience members.
Just that this is probably the single most important issue that's facing the city of Troy in its history. And I'm not meaning to be theatrical, but we need to have some firm advice on which option we should select to move forward. And I'd also like the governing body to give serious consideration to the alternatives to enhance our revenue stream.
And I noticed in the resolution it doesn't say what time the special meeting would be, and we have a meeting already scheduled for 6 to 7:15 that evening. Was it your intention that it be after the regular meeting?
Yes, the resolution indicates that we will meet
Immediately
following. We're going to have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission that Monday, September 28th, and I plan on having a very short agenda for regular business items so we can get right into this, hopefully before 9 o'clock.
Okay. That's why I inquired about the time element, because I think for members of the community that wish to either view it or come and speak, that we sort of indicate what time. So we anticipate that it be before 9?
Yes.
Okay. And it could be earlier, it could be...
I'm hoping it's 8 o'clock, but we'll see how long.
So depending on how the agenda comes.
Sure.
And then we do have the other meeting, and clarify again the meeting that we're having with the joint meeting with Planning Commission from 6 to 7:15.
Yes.
At the police headquarters.
OEC, yes. At the, I think it's called the OEC meeting, or the EOC room that we have in the police department. And that is to get input again from both the Planning Commission and City Council relative to the recent purchase agreement by Mr. Gary Sakwa of the Pavilion site, also known as the old Kmart site. We were asked questions by the developer on what we think the Council or Planning Commission would like to see in on that area. And as opposed to trying to guess what you'd like to see, I thought it would be good to have a joint meeting and you can advise directly what you think would work on that site.
And we're having it at that location because of the size of the group that is meeting to all be around the table. There isn't a room in this facility where the Planning Commission and the Council could all sit around together, do that, and it needed to be in close proximity to this building because then we have to be here at 7:30 for our regular meeting.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I know we haven't taken public comment. I had a couple questions,
Yeah.
but I guess I'm asking, should I ask them now,
Go
or
ahead.
should we wait and take public comment?
That might clarify something for somebody in the audience
Okay.
who wishes to speak, so go ahead.
And that was just a couple questions. The first is, unfortunately, I'm out of town on the 28th. But two things. Either could we have a meeting a week earlier on the 21st? If we cannot do that, can I be conferenced in? Since this is a study session, I would be available to be conferenced in on the 28th.
It's a special meeting, not a study session.
Oh.
So it can't be.
Well, can I be conferenced in just to be part of the discussion? I can't vote, but can I be conferenced in? This is a very important subject matter.
Mrs. Bone?
I can address the Open Meetings Act concern. Yes, I mean, certainly it's not the preference to do that. It's certainly the preference to have all the members there so that the public can observe what's occurring, any members of the audience. However, if you were not voting, again, assuming that there's the capability of having the communication there, and I'm assuming that there is since it's our EOC, then you could certainly, be at least be on the clock.
Okay, and then, so the third question then was, well, we haven't talked about the 21st possible, but the third question, I read your letter, Mr. Zerlag, and you suggested some more Monday meetings in addition to what our regular scheduled council meetings, and I was curious to find out, would we be setting those this evening, or would that be at that meeting, or how would that?
This is the most important piece of business in front of us. We'll meet at midnight on Tuesday if you'd like. I mean, we'll meet any time that the governing body so desires, and it would be great to schedule meetings on a weekly basis until this is resolved. It may be that we only have to meet once or twice.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I won't be available on the 21st. I'll be out of town, so.
All right, I'll be out of town.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Beltrami?
Not me. Mayor?
Yes, Council.
If the council
Ms.
member is
Bartholomew.
electing to go with a communication, you do need to do a suspension of the Rule 28 for wireless. So you do need to suspend Rule 28 because of the electronic wire rule.
And that's allowed, Mrs. Bartholomew, because there will be no voting at that meeting?
As far as the Open Meetings Act portion of it, I defer to the city attorney, but the standing rule for 28 prohibits wiring.
Mrs. Bloom, see, that's my question. We just explained when Mr. Reinhardt asked why we aren't doing that for people who aren't here, and now you're saying we can do that. Yes, Mrs. Bloom?
Well, first of all, I don't recommend it. That's the first thing. Secondly, you cannot use a member who's participating as part of the quorum. And third, you cannot vote. So those are three things that occur in regular business meetings that may not occur here. Ms. Bartholomew is correct. There is a rule that you'll have to deal with, but as far as compliance with the Open Meetings Act, it is possible, again, that member cannot be counted towards the quorum, though, and you do need to have a quorum in order to have a meeting.
Mr. Zerlag, were you expecting a vote on something at that meeting on the 28th? I noticed that you called it as a special meeting and not a study session or other things.
Well, I've been advised that we don't have study sessions anymore. And if we did, I would be asking for a direction that I could take from a telephone that we would set in the middle of the table and just get input from the people who were at the table and Christina, who was not, to answer any questions that may come up in a study session format. If the council is comfortable with the presentation and wants to immediately go to the options to lessen the impact of reduced services and mitigate workforce reduction, and falls on an option at either 2 weeks from now or the week after, at that point I would like a resolution on which way to proceed, because there's only one thing I can do. I can seek employee concessions, but there's 6 things that I list. The other 5 are up to you. And so the outcome at our meeting 2 weeks from tonight would be, number 1, to just indicate again what is facing us and what assumptions we have utilized, answer any questions there too relative to the options. The second component would be, or the outcome would be, to get your input and hopefully fall on an option that the governing body would select so we can proceed along a certain path. And then thirdly would be to consider the alternatives that we have, and should the council decide to select one, then we can proceed at that point to move forward. If one of the options is that the council wants to have the voters consider a general fund millage increase, then we should move forward with that option. If that's not an option, then it's not. But I'd like to have the governing body let me know which options you feel are viable and which ones are not.
I would anticipate that even at our meeting, the first meeting when we discussed this, that we would have quite a bit of public input, because I already had public input on the weekend from people that had either viewed it online or viewed it through someone else that was there, and they had opinions on various kinds of things. And since it is such a vital decision, we would expect that we would have a lot of public input. And saying that, maybe we should now call on the members of the audience, and then we can decide what we're going to do about the 28th. Is that all right? Okay. Marvin Reinhardt? This is on the scheduling of that special meeting.
Yes, I'm just trying to get the basis of this meeting. Okay,
Yes.
we have a manager that quit on us 2 years ago and has a pension, lifetime pension in the city, right?
Mr. Reinhardt, could we just talk about the issue?
That's what I'm talking about. It's his
Okay.
meeting. He's in charge of it, okay? You people begged him to come out of his dream job in Florida. Listen, and he's going to dictate at midnight sometime the exact 6 years of this city, and you expect people not to get upset. You see what the Tea Party people did? Now you're going to have the whole Troy. In other words, Troy was made overnight because we're afraid Birmingham, Bloomfield, Sterling Heights, Warren, Clawson, Auburn Hills, Avon Township was going to steal our land. Now, we all gave up. Troy's dead. We're going to split it up. We got the 15-mile transit center. That's Birmingham. We got building inspection farmed out to Warren. That's Macomb. Now we're going to have the plan for Troy out of a clear blue, out of somebody that quit. And I don't know when he comments on that towing contract, is he being a consultant for the police at that time so he could charge a police consultant fee, or was he the city manager at that time? It's really hard to confuse. It's not his fault. I think he's fantastic. He tricked you guys that he's making more money than the last guy. But all I got to say is, why in the middle of the night?
No,
Just like the Republicans. Don't worry, you guys remind me of the Republicans.
Mr. Reinhardt, the suggestion for the meeting was at a time of 9 o'clock, part of our regular meeting, okay?
It says after the meeting.
Yes, but it won't be late because it's already been indicated we will have very few agenda items, and I think that the people that will come to that meeting will come on this issue, but they'll want to speak specifically to the items that were mentioned as options, and that's why when we call the public up...
Did you read the letter?
I did read the thing several times. And they'll speak in favor and opposed to certain things that are there, but also there was input from staff. So I just want to clarify for you so that you're clear of what we're discussing here.
I understand. Okay? It's the future of Troy, which my dad and people went in the middle of the night up the lens to make sure it advances, and ever since then somehow we're going backwards. Okay, that's the reason I can't run for council, because General Motors and UAW pay me so much money that if I work 1 hour, I lose too much. Until that happens, I'm in this position. But all I gotta say is somebody quit the city of Troy, and then he's going to decide how to divide it up. That's all. You don't have. That's it.
Okay. Kumar Blatt, and then Marianne Bernardi. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. There was an option A that I'm not really in favor of, and the option A deals with doing away with the library, the community center, and the community services. Just want to express my feelings about it. We are the city of tomorrow, which is the information and the knowledge center. And if we get rid of the library, we have nothing else. That's my comment. Secondly, I would also like to see, before the next meeting, if it is possible for the citizens to look up on the website, on the city's website, the kind of a framework that we are working on, whether to outsource certain things or whether to consolidate them. What is the kind of framework? What kind of criteria do we use? That's something I would like to see. I'm sure the other citizens would. And would also like to get all the details behind the decisions. In other words, there may be some kind of a spreadsheets, some kind of assumptions. We would like to be able to be able to see it. We'd like to be also able to comment on some of those things. So hopefully these suggestions you would consider before the next meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mary Ann Bernardi?
I would like to echo the previous speaker. Mr. Zerleg, in restructuring the proposal, is basing a revenue projection that goes out 6 years. And in that progression, he comes to a $22 million shortfall. My question is this: what is the source of the market conditions projections upon which he bases these conclusions regarding what the shortfall will be? We are living in times of greatly divergent opinions. I think we all would agree on that. For every doom and gloom projection, you can find another projection that's more optimistic and has an optimistic outlook. It is difficult to project out 2 years, let alone 6. I mean, are you at all aware of the struggle that's going on right now as we speak in Lansing, because they're trying to do a 2-year budget instead of a 1-year budget? But there are so many variables. That's why they can't come to terms with it. So many variables, so many unknowns, so many changing trends. And they're having trouble getting 2 years. But here we are saying that we can go out and predict what will happen in 6 years. And the further out you project, the less reliable and the less accurate your projections will be. And yet we are willing to make sweeping changes in this community based on that kind of a long-term projection that does not give us accuracy. If you take away all the services and the personnel, we talked about, and that option 1 was laying off 42 policemen. Well, anyways, if you take away all these services, the library, the community center, and on, that Mr. Zerlag proposes, revenues will go down, because who will want to come to this city, whether it's to live or to work? Businesses will leave, people will leave. It will no longer be the desirable place. I talked to my neighbor today, and she said, oh, I wasn't aware that they were going to do that, but that's why we came to Troy, and that's why people come to Troy. Her words: once you mothball our wonderful city services and personnel, it will be difficult, if not impossible, to reinstate all of that. Read option 1. All right, okay, I'll do that. The following departments will be eliminated: library, community center, museum, nature center, community affairs, risk management. In these times, it says a function will be maintained. Well, that really reassures me. And then it talks about reduction of 47 full-time personnel in the police department. No. On a 6-year projection, no. Also, these weekly meetings that are proposed, I know they're going to be called open to the public. They're going to be described that way. But do you know of 80,000 people coming daily to City Hall to look at the postings here to find out about when and where those meetings will be? We don't have 80,000 people. My husband doesn't come here every day to look at the posting. I don't come every day. So you're posting them here at City Hall, but who will know? And yes, we have to be proactive. Absolutely, we have to be. But our actions should be based on reliable projections. And the only way to make that realistic is to project no further than 2 years out. To go further than that is like using a crystal ball. Who here is clairvoyant enough to know what the economic environment will be in 6 years in this ever-changing world that we live in today? Please consider these comments, because as everyone before me said, the future of Troy is depending on these decisions. This is huge.
Mrs. Bernardi, you left your purse here. Mr. Zerlag, yes, this is huge. And I think that we talked about projections, the 5-year projections at our last budget time? We get
Yes, we
numbers
did.
from the county. We get numbers in all the time. Maybe, I know this is not the meeting for this. We're
Right.
going to have a meeting about it. But for the public's benefit, could you just indicate how we come upon the numbers and how we're able to project so far out into the future?
Very generally, during the past budget sessions that we had this April, there was, I think it was on page 62 or 63, was a one-line 5-year projections of a declining revenue line based essentially on decreases in market value as well as in state shared revenue. And there's been some calibrations made. Unfortunately, they were made to make those revenue lines fall steeper over the next 5 years than what we initially anticipated. One thing that really hurt us this coming fiscal year is that I believe it was the commercial industrial properties could have their value determined over a 2-year time frame. That was cut in half to 1 year, and the last year's sales were horrible. In the city of Troy, about 1 out of every house sales are in foreclosure or are a foreclosure. As an example, in Birmingham, about 1 out of every 5 houses that are for sale in Birmingham are in foreclosure. So if we went out 2 years, we're looking at essentially a deficit in 10-11 of $6.2 million and 11 and 12 of $6.0 million. That's all in the general fund. And over 70% of those numbers are people. And if you figure that with, just very generally again, with benefits and salary levels, if you figured $100,000 per person, well, 6.2 million people is 62 people, and another $6 million is 60 more. There's 122 people right there, just going out 2 years. On top of that, this current fiscal year, we project a deficit of $1.6 million, and that's because, again, we had revenue generators that were included in the budget that did not reach fruition. We had increased costs in our defined benefit plan, which lost about 25% of its portfolio, as well as lost money in the retiree health care system. So if we went out only 2 years, it would still be drastic cuts that need to be made, given the cap that we have on our millage and costs that increase about 2% a year on other areas like utilities and insurance. What we did was take a look essentially at every department and said, okay, does the charter require that department? Can it be eliminated, yes or no, or should it be eliminated? Can the department be privatized, and primarily that was with the on-demand type of services? Could it be regionalized? Could a county come in and do the job on behalf of the city? And I know that if it was regionalized or privatized, you're not going to get that level of service, but at least you have that level of service. We did not consider consolidation, and that's my personal favorite, because a time frame cannot be guaranteed to reach a 2 or 3 party agreement with another municipality or two. As an example, it took the city, when former Chief Kraft and myself worked on consolidating dispatch with Clausen, it took about 1.5 years. And we don't really have 1.5 years left before we start looking at drastic changes. We could be like many other cities and look at our budgets 1 year at a time and be like a lobster in a pot of water, and before you know it, you're cooked. Or we could take a declining revenue line, extrapolate that, and if times get better, then we can cut back on the proposed layoffs, hire people back. If times are worse, then we'd have to accelerate what we're doing to reduce our level of service. I indicated earlier that this is the most important decision you'll be making because it's a generational decision. You'll be defining essentially what the city of Troy is going to look like in the future. And again, I mentioned 6 alternatives that you have. I only have one. I can seek employee concessions, but that's also subject to labor negotiations and certain restrictions I have based on some employees that want to join the United Auto Workers at this point, or ask me or the Michigan Association of Police. Those are my limitations. You have other limitations in and of yourself. You cannot raise the taxes. You have to go to the people if you want to do that and leave it up to them if they want to define the city a certain way. we don't have a machine that prints money. So we have to take a look at what our revenues are and how we can match a declining revenue line. In terms of, young man, of what we used for a formula for privatization or regionalization, we assumed that we could save about 40% if we consolidated, regionalized, or privatized. That number, again, would be calibrated as we got closer to actual bids that we would take from private sector firms or talking to other planes of government.
Okay. Councilman Beltrame?
Mr. Zerlich, would you please repeat, we have one in how many house sales or foreclosure sales at this point?
You will find out at our joint meeting, talking with Mr. Sakwa, who had purchased the Pavilion site, which is the old Kmart site. One thing he's going to mention is to have a tiered approach on various elements of use at that site, residential, commercial, and housing, and wants to predicate housing on market demand. And one reason that he does not want that in his first tier, where he'll be primarily pushing retail, is that he has information indicating that 1 in 3 houses that are sold in Troy are sold via foreclosure.
Okay, so what that means is when a majority of a taxing neighborhood has more foreclosure sales than not, those foreclosure sales become, in essence, the taxable value for that neighborhood, and that's all we can collect.
I have to defer to either John Lamorato or Nino Licari on that matter. I'm not sure of the formula.
Pretty much right. Okay, and the other thing I know, going back to the National League of Cities, one of the things that the Finance Committee there is looking at is we're expecting, I have another question.
I just want you to talk in the microphone so we can hear over here.
I'm sorry.
That's why I'm interrupting you.
I'm losing my voice. I talked a lot
he
today.
can hear you, but we can't over here.
Sorry. One of the things we're finding out is the commercial foreclosures are now beginning to roll out. Have we seen any indication of that here in Troy? Because I guess I'm concerned about all of these sales being depressed and then us limited by inflation to get that value back.
I have not seen anything. Perhaps John
That would be
has,
good news.
but we'll find out what's out there.
Okay.
Have
Thank
an
you.
answer for you.
Thanks.
One more thing, if I may.
Yes.
I believe that when other cities see what we're doing here in Troy, that the managers and mayors are going to try a 5-year projection as well. I believe that if they do, and I'll defer to Mrs. Beltramini, who's the president of the Michigan Municipal League, because I asked Robin point blank how many cities would actually disappear 5 years from now, given these revenue lines.
70. Right off the top.
70 out of
We know that 70, which is about 15% of the cities and villages in Michigan, would disappear over the next 3 years, just like that.
Madam Mayor?
Yes. Councilman Kerwin.
I think it's a concern for all units of government. I think you could do the same thing with school districts, townships. Any local unit of government at this point is experiencing the same thing. The revenues hurt us all.
Sure.
Okay, now we're on to scheduling that meeting for the 28th, and it has been requested that if we schedule it for the 28th, because several of us were going to be on the 21st, I'm sorry, we couldn't reschedule it for the 21st, that we have the possibility of the video conferencing, and you said we had to
Suspend rules.
You have to suspend Rule 28, which is...
suspend Rule 28 in order to do that. Okay. Councilman Eisbacher?
Okay. Resolved that Troy City Council hereby schedules a special City Council meeting for Monday, September 28th, 2009, immediately following the regular City Council meeting in the Council Chambers of Troy City Hall, 500 West Big Beaver, Troy, Michigan, 48084, for the purpose of discussing City Manager Zerleg's 6-year organizational restructuring plan for the City of Troy, fiscal year 2009-2010 through 2014-2015. Be it further resolved that Council Rules of Procedure Rule 28 will be suspended to allow Councilwoman Broomfield, or any absent council members to participate without voting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Councilman Eisenbacher, seconded by Councilwoman Beltramini, that we schedule the special city council meeting for immediately following the regular city council meeting, which will be short in duration, et cetera, for the reasons stated, and then we suspend Rule 28 of the Council Rules and Procedures to allow for absent council members to participate without voting. Is that it? Okay. Discussion on the motion? Vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Broomfield?
Yes.
Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Motion passes. We had item E2 requested. Mr. Reinhardt, you wish to speak on E2, which was our, just a sec, it's our nominating for appointments to boards and committees?
Right. I was told ever since I could learn to write my signature that if there's any blanks on pages that you're not supposed to sign it. Now what we have is all blanks. Now I'm sure that probably ex-Councilman Mary Lambert, whatever they are, might put it on their website because that's where I get it. But it's all blanks. Now, what's that? Now, a few people were brave enough to say they volunteered to work in the city. Now, I've volunteered many times and I've been asked I'm not needed. Okay, so where will you get the names of these people? Because I Googled everybody that works for this city and I figure out who they know. Because this city is going into the dumps because some people are getting rich in this city and the city's going under. And I'm going to find out who did it. Now you guys can lay awake at night thinking I might not find you, but I got nothing to do now. So that's my question. My question is, why aren't all those names fulfilled? Because, as you say, Mayor, we've got tremendous volunteer service in this city, and there's no reason why all these names can't be put out there. Because you're going to vote for something with blanks. Is that the normal business in this city, to vote on contract? You just tore these guys apart.
Now, Mr. Reinhardt, let me explain to you. We receive the sheet that has the current members of a committee on, and if they would wish to be reappointed, we receive that. And then there are interested applicants that are listed, and if those
Yeah,
people...
but we don't see that.
Okay. It is, Mrs. Bartholomew, you have further explanation?
The names of applicants that are not appointed are more private than those that have been appointed to a board. And that information is protected for their privacy. Some of the information is available through a FOIA, but most of the private information is received.
So we do have secret boards in this city with people we don't know about.
No. When they're appointed, it is public information.
Well, it's
but
really
if they
hard for me to find
apply,
this stuff.
there are rules that indicate that that information about those people is not provided to the public.
Right, secret people.
No.
You know, if they're working for the city, making decisions for our city, then we should know who's making the decisions.
You do.
We do.
Yeah. Well, I don't talk French, I talk American, I talk us. Now, if you want to talk we's, that's fine. I can go back into French class. But I think that should be easier to find. Because like the woman says, I come here every day and see meetings posted. One day they're posted, one day they're not. Over at the Civic Center, they say they don't have to post anything for the public. You know those meetings? They don't have to post nothing for the public over there. Because I go over there all the time and the machine's down. So there's a lot of secret meetings going on in this city, and this is the result of it. And poor mayor, you're going to be the mayor remembered for what happened to the city. Okay? I'm going to help you.
Thank you, Mr. Reinhardt. We have E2 in front of us, but we have two members that are here on E4, but they didn't sign up. And I guess we didn't teach them that. If you sign up on your item, we take it before the other items that are there. Says it's council pleasure to do the rest of E2, or would you like to go to E4? E2? All right.
You have to finish E2.
E2 is, well, and then we got to go back to E1 after that. Okay, E2 is nominations, mayor nominations. These are reappointments of people who already are serving on the DDA. Michelle Hodges, Daniel McLeish, and Harvey Weiss for reappointment to terms ending September 30th, 2012. I bring forward those names. For the Economic Development Corporation, Mark Miller, Acting Assistant City Manager, Economic Development Services, for the unexpired term expiring April 30th, 2011. For the Local Development Finance Authority, the unexpired term, Mark Miller, Acting Assistant.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor?
Yes. Those are all?
That is supposed to be a resident of the city of Troy. Brian Murphy actually replaced John Zerlag as that appointee.
Under LDFA?
Yes.
Oh. I thought it was supposed to be
it was the desire of this council that 3 of those members be city residents when we started the LDFA.
Well, we still have you, Christina Broomfield, and Wade.
No, they are alternates, Madam Mayor.
As alternates. Oh, okay. All right, until November. Okay. All right.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt.
All right, no, that's fine.
You will be in violation of the bylaws.
You're just correcting it, and that's fine. I'm just going by what was listed here in the agenda. All right, so we'll take off LDFA until, yes?
To expedite matters, I'll volunteer to be on the LDFA.
Good. All right. So John Zerlag for the unexpired term expiring June 30th of 2011.
Good.
Do we have a second to those?
Second.
Moved by the chair, seconded by Councilwoman Broomfield, that we forward those names. We'll vote on the next meeting.
Madam Mayor?
Discussion? Yes.
I do have a question on the Harvey Weiss appointment.
Yes.
Our sheet does not show that he requests reappointment, and he's missed several meetings.
Yes.
How did he explain that to you when you talked to him?
Sometimes the people that are on DDA have other commitments, and I was going to talk to him more about it at the last meeting, and then the last meeting was canceled. And so the last time I talked to him about being on, he wanted to continue on. I would like the attendance to be better. I have missed some too.
Well, and we all miss meetings from time to time, but he's missed a significant amount. And then with this slow request to be reappointed, I'm concerned. I would appreciate if you would talk to him one more time before we have that to vote on in 2 weeks.
Yes, I can do that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Eisbacher?
I also wanted to just make a general point of information that may help our audience. All the members of these committees have their name listed on the minutes from the meetings. All the minutes from the meetings come to the council in our council packet that's available for viewing at the library or for download from any computer with internet access. So if you want to figure out who's on any of the committees within the city of Troy, please look at the meeting minutes.
Okay, further discussion on the forwarding? Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Kerwin?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Broomfield?
Yes.
Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Motion passes. City council nominations. Are there reappointments here someone wishes to make? You want to wait till next time?
Yeah.
There's a animal control. There's Animal Control Appeal Board. 2 members are requesting reappointment.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'll move
Councilwoman Kerwin.
I'll move the reappointments, including the 2 for Animal Control Board and Padma for Cable Advisory Board, and Karen Yelder for Ethnic Issues.
There's quite a few. Parks and Rec?
Yes, and Rusty and Stuart Redpath for Park and Rec. Anybody else?
There any more?
Those are just reappointments.
Okay. Someone want a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Kerwin, seconded by Councilwoman Broomfield, that we reappoint following members for the Animal Control Appeal Board: Al Petroulas and Vincent James Viola. For the Cable Advisory Committee, Padma Kupa. For the Ethnic Issues Advisory Board, Karen Yelder, reappointment. For the Parks and Rec Board, Rusty Kalstunas, reappointment. Is that it?
Stu Redpath.
And Stu Redpath also for that board for reappointment. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Mayor Schilling?
Yes?
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Broomfield?
Yes.
Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, now we'll go back. E1. Oh, they didn't sign up for it, so we now got to go in order. E1. I'll move the appointment of Terry Knight for the at-large member to the Downtown Development Authority.
Support.
Move of the chair, seconded by Councilwoman Kerwin, that we appoint Terry Knight to the unexpired term of the Downtown Development Authority, expiring September 30th, 2011. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Broomfield?
Yes.
Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes. Motion passes. City Council appointments.
Mayor,
Councilman Eisenbacher.
I'll move the appointments as presented.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Eisenbacher, seconded by Councilwoman Beltramini, that we appoint Dane LaPola as a student member to the Liquor Advisory Committee, and for the Parks and Rec Board, Gary Huff as the Troy School District representative. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Broomfield?
Yes.
Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Motion passes. E4 is the final contract for emergency medical services. I'll move the resolution.
Second.
Support.
Seconded by Councilwoman Beltramini. Discussion?
Mayor?
Councilwoman Broomfield.
I just need to disclose that the father of 3 of my grandchildren works for this company. But I don't get any money. I just get the benefit of the grandchildren.
That's a pretty good bid.
Madam Mayor,
Councilman Fleming?
I need to disclose to my son does business with the company as well. I'm on his
Okay.
board.
Thank you. Any
That-
others?
You're precluded then, right?
I need to leave.
Pardon?
We need to vote.
Business
Madam Mayor?
relationship.
Yes. Councilman Beltramini?
I would move to excuse Councilman Fleming from this vote because of a potential business conflict.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Beltramini, seconded by Councilman Eisbacher, that we excuse Councilman Wade Fleming from a vote on this item because of potential business conflict. Family business. Discussion? Vote, Mrs. Bartholomew, to excuse?
You have to vote.
Councilmember Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Broomfield?
Yes.
Motion passes. We'll call you back in. And now the motion on the contract. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Kerwin?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Broomfield?
Yes.
Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Madam Mayor?
Councilwoman Kerwin?
I'm just really hoping that some of the Alliance folks will stay a little bit longer and speak during public comment, because I know that they're going to have a wonderful open house coming up. It's a great opportunity for many members of the community. I'm so pleased that Alliance is located here in Troy and has welcomed Troy People Concerned into the building so that we have a nice nonprofit relationship. I hear many citizens who express satisfaction with the service from Alliance, and as I say, I hope that they'll stay just a little bit longer.
It's our next item, so if they wish. Okay, we're going to public comment of items that are not on the agenda. I'm going to call on the folks from Alliance.
Before you hadn't planned to talk.
Mayor and members of the council, first of
You
all,
want
thank
to
you.
move your mic up? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your support over the past 6 years, and as we move forward, we look forward to the relationship that we have with the city. And this is Mike Kohler, our operations manager, and I know he feels the same way, so thank you. Saturday, October 10th, we are having our second annual Halloween Health Fair, and this time we're opening it up a little bit larger to include kids, and we'll have games and events. We're going to be offering flu shots into the community. There'll be vendors there available to provide just some health and education. So hopefully you'll get your invitation soon and you'll be present as well. So thank you again very much for your support.
Thank you. Yes, Councilwoman Kerwin, you have a question?
Do you have an idea how much those flu shots might cost so we could make that known?
My understanding is they're going to be free.
And I'll show up.
That's the regular flu shot. That's not the swine flu shot.
Correct, the regular flu shot.
You'd really get a lot of people if you're going to do the swine flu shot for you. Okay, just clarify. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We appreciate having you in the community. Yes, Councilman Eisenbacher?
Thank you. Are you also? I enjoyed the event last year. Are you also going to have blood donations this year?
Yes, thank you. It's also a blood drive. It's a health fair and a blood drive. Thank you.
Vampire blood drive.
It's late.
Before Halloween.
Only for their lunch.
Yes.
Okay, Councilman Buckman?
It was a great event last year, and we're really thrilled with the service you provide and
thank you. And
for locating
really, if I could put all 115 people in front of you, paramedics and EMTs, they really have, I don't want to say the word enjoy because that's not a good word when you do EMS, but they're proud to serve the city. They really are.
Okay.
They're good at what they do.
Good night.
Thanks for sticking around for the item. Okay. Items not on the agenda. Marv Reinhardt?
Somebody else will speak first. Maybe I'm going to say something I don't have to repeat.
Okay. Barry Demp?
Gone.
He's gone.
Left. Wayne Stutzman. Yeah, I know he's still here.
Long night.
The towing contract took a lot of time.
I'm sorry?
The towing contract took a long time.
Yes. Having been a taxpayer in the city of Troy for 39 years, I've been here a few times and met with some of you people here and in other areas. I was very happy. And listening to some things tonight really got me thinking. However, I got to say that I got my copy of the Somerset Gazette the other day, and I understand by reading this, and I am assuming that this is true, Council completes ballot proposals for November. And Proposition 2 says it will make it possible for the city manager to live outside of the city limits. Is this a true statement?
Within 20 miles of
I don't care.
the city limits.
Yes.
I don't care about that. Outside of the city limits of Troy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I have some questions.
And that's because of this. Do you want to explain about the state law? This may help a little bit. Mrs. Bloom?
Mayor, because there was a state law that was passed that does not allow the city to impose residency as a requirement, this is a proposal that would get our charter consistent with what is provided under state law.
Well, you know, I'm not so happy with the state either. Why is it even a remote concept to pay a city manager over $220,000 a year to manage a 42 square mile city and not even live within those city limits? Why should the citizens of Troy pay their taxes to a fund that allows their money to go to an exorbitant salary to a person who takes that money to support another community? Why should the citizens of Troy accept a city manager's salary and benefits that challenge most governors, county executives, and yes, even Washington congressional representatives, whose daily decisions far exceed the city manager impacting our lives? I would like to hear anybody comment on that.
Do you wish to speak, David? Councilman Eisbacher?
With no disrespect, I just would like to clarify one point, and that is that our current city manager does live within the city of Troy.
Today he does.
Yes.
But according to this, he doesn't have to.
That is correct.
If it goes to the ballot.
Yeah. You are absolutely correct because of state law.
Okay. And other comments that were made tonight is that I don't see how a person can make the decisions that he has himself said tonight is the absolute leader for tomorrow for the city of Troy and not even live here. I don't get it.
Mayor? It's always been a requirement of our city charter, and it was simply because of the state law that this is even on the ballot. It's always been a requirement of our charter previous to this.
Well, then, regardless of that, if the city manager decides he wants to live in Birmingham or Bloomfield Hills or Clawson or Auburn Hills, I don't care. My point is, if we're paying him all this money, and he is so important to earn all this money, the President of the United States only makes $400,000 a year. He should live here, and he should support this city. If he doesn't, then shame on him.
Mr. Wayne?
Wait just a minute, Mr. Stephen.
Just in defense of what I believe truth to be, it's important. We can have our opinions, and you're entitled to yours, and I'm entitled to mine. But I think it's important to also attempt to be open to what is truth and what is staring us in the face.
Well, that's why I'm here. I want to know what the truth is.
The truth is, our city manager lives in the city of Troy, has told me many, many times, even if he worked outside of the state of Michigan, planned to retire in the city of Troy. I know his wife personally. I know that that's their goal, but they can change. That's their prerogative. One of the candidates that came to us when we were going through that whole process was concerned because he was not going to be able to live in the city of Troy should he have gotten the offer. Currently, he doesn't live in the city that he is managing. He drives in 20 minutes. So this is not just to one person, and it's certainly not requested by our city manager. This was something that we are putting forward to align ourselves with the state. Now that is what the truth is. It has nothing to do with a person. It has everything to do with what we're trying to do to make things right with the state.
Okay, I totally agree with everything you're saying. It's fine, but we don't know that. All we do is we get this.
Well, they don't always, papers don't always report all the points, and that's why you come out, and I appreciate the fact that you came out.
This is why I'm here, and I sat here until 11 o'clock tonight.
Yes, you did, and I apologize that you had to do that.
You go ahead.
No, there was nothing more. I'm sorry.
You were shaking your head, so I thought maybe you had something to say.
It's very sad that you had to wait till 11 to say that.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Eisbacher?
And it is a good point that he read it in the newspaper, so it's good that it was asked because this is going to be televised and more people can understand that it's not a particular person, it's just compliance with state law.
And it does explain in the brochure that they're all going to get to.
Yeah.
Okay, Doug Teets wishes to speak. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. My name is Doug Teets, and most of the time when people come up, they criticize, condemn, but here I'm to compliment. Last Tuesday, came to the healthcare rally that was outside City Hall, There were probably 2,000 to 3,000 people there. And as is the time of year, I've kept on saying, "Are you in the city of Troy? My name's Doug Teets. Hello, hello." And those people that work from the city of Troy complimented again and again our city police, saying how polite they were, how organized, how well the crowd was handled, the parking was handled. And this isn't the first large rally that they've handled with great care and great skill. For instance, the April 15th rally, I organized that one myself, but we had 2,500 people there, and I was expecting something like 70. And so having a surprise crowd like that, they had planned for all of the unexpected. And so there's a lot to be said for that. And so as many times as there were people that come to criticize, I wanted to just take a moment and thank them. And I was hoping that you would share that thanks with them as you talk to them. And it's really something that we can be proud of, because in a way they act as a board of tourism for us, for these other people from different communities to say, this is a great place to live, the police treat us well, and we can be proud of what we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Rondo. Nice to see you again.
Good evening. Thank you very much. My name is Richard Rondo. I'm Executive Director for Mothers Against Drunk Driving here in Southeast Michigan. We are about to have a very critical fundraiser walk hosted by your wonderful city of Troy. It's called Walk Like Mad. It's going to be held here right on the Civic Center grounds on September 26th, Saturday, September 26th, from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. It's a wonderful opportunity for friends and family to honor anyone who has been impacted by an alcohol-related crash, whether they be city employees, family, anyone, corporations and businesses. It's a known fact that before our lifetime is over, 1 in every 3 of us will be impacted by an alcohol-related crash. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a pretty scary statistic. I don't have to remind any of you of the terrible tragedy that happened in Roseville the day before of all days, the day before St. Patrick's Day, where these 4 young teenagers were on their way to the Macomb Mall, just doing what kids do, going to the mall to pick up pizza, maybe buddy up with a few other friends. And they were killed by a drunk driver in a full-size conversion van going 85 miles an hour down Gratiot. She became airborne as she skipped over the curb on the median side and pretty much landed on the car. I went to every funeral. You get really tired of seeing young people in coffins. You get tired of seeing anybody in coffins, but especially young people. It's unnatural to bury your children. Every one of those families came to MAD for assistance. We have one of the world's largest counseling services, grief counseling services. Every one of those families came to us. And in order for us to keep those services going, we need the financial support of this community. Our area of responsibility is from Sanilac, St. Clair, where my day began this morning, speaking to a high school class up in Beck. And I went to Lapeer to be on a cable show, talking about the walk, talking about MAD and its purpose. And it's ending here tonight to implore all of you in the city of Troy to come out in full force and embrace not only our organization, but embrace our victims who will be out as well, victims and their families who will be out as well to celebrate their loved ones. Last year, 104 people lost their lives in an alcohol-related crash just in Southeast Michigan. I had someone come up to me one time after I made that statement at an open forum, and they said, well, you know, it's only 104. What's the big deal? Well, biting my tongue, I answered him by saying, it's only 104 if you're not related to those 104. It's only human nature, isn't it? That when we open the paper and we see a face staring back at us with a headline saying, killed in an alcohol-related crash or any kind of crash, if we don't recognize that face, we turn the page and life goes on. We might feel sorry for that person. We might feel sorry for their family. But if we don't know them, we turn the page. I invoke everyone here to put yourself in the position of those parents who lost those 4 young people. It is now very personal for them. Make it personal for you. Anyone listening to my voice should think about the loved ones in their family. Think about those pictures you have in your wallet before you begin to celebrate, if it includes alcohol. This solution is just so simple. It's common sense. How are we going to stop drunk driving? By using your common sense. Don't think you're going to be the only one in history to make it from point A to point B impaired without, on the low end, getting arrested, getting pulled over, and on the high end, the tragic end, hurting somebody, killing somebody, maybe yourself. It's a known fact that people drive drunk almost 100 times before their first arrest. So first arrest is synonymous with first time caught. That woman who killed those 4 kids never got one traffic violation. She's an admitted alcoholic all her life. Not one alcohol-related traffic incident. This was her first offense. Do you think this was the first time she drove drunk? I don't think so. I invite all of you and the city of Troy, Clawson, and the surrounding communities to come on out and walk like mad. It's okay to be mad. We need you. Thank you very much. We appreciate your hosting this event. And I want to personally, publicly thank your Chief of Police, Chief Mayor, for coming out to Cold Stone Creamery last week to help us scoop ice cream. He said he didn't have any, but I really don't believe him. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rendon.
Thank you.
Mr. Reinhardt, you gave the floor to others that wish to speak on items. That was very nice. Thank you.
I'm going to get 4-letter words. Just case in point that President Obama has this thing called Operation Chubby Kids, that the city should understand that he wants kids to walk to school, even though somebody up there said the kids never have to walk across big streets. But it's a big push right now because somehow they think kids in America are a little bit chubby. The happy part is that the Troy High School class of '59 is going to have a reunion at the Embassy Hotel, which I inform you, Historical Society, they should interview, but they say they don't want to know old history of Troy, so they're not going to be there to interview people that graduated from Troy in 1959. Also, I come across something on the internet quoted by one of our policemen back there that says when he does a fundraiser and somebody donates a bike, the cut to the police department's the bicycle handles. So apparently, we're using the wrong people to raise funds for the city of Troy. And when you mention about the towing company having a low ball thing, you ought to check San Marino Club because the Elks Club's dead. Somehow they underbid the Elks Club and the Elks Club is now dead. So when you guys question bids in this city, watch who you question, because that is a country. It doesn't have to make any money when they make a bid. That's the embassy of the San Marino country. Also, I have the listing of all the Marine units that's stationed in the world. Okay? On this piece of paper, it doesn't show the Marine detachment over there on Cooks because it's a training unit. Now, we all seen the unit on the TV. They call it a training unit, and they go around shooting people all over the world because that's how much terror possibilities in this city. And then here's the thing that says cops got screwed over from public funding. Maybe if our part-time city manager / police consultant could apply for more funding outside the city instead of trying to write letters protecting why he can be a lifetime pensioner inside the city and ask for everybody to leave. We could get more funds from different cities, because I don't think this city has a grant writer. Most cities have grant writers that brings in millions of dollars, but not this city. This city doesn't have one. And also about that Kmart building, that guy said he bought a $50 million property for $14 million, and most people would take that $14 million, remortgage it, and build his own house. But no, our city, which somebody over there says is going to make draconian cuts, eliminate libraries, says, you know what, we can give you a tax incentive because we got so much money. Now, I think there's a big disconnect. How can the city give away all these tax breaks at the same time we're going to have Mr. Brains over there figure out how to dissect the city? See, that's the question that's really hard for people out there to understand. Buy a piece of property worth $50 million for 14, and then still complain the super rich don't have enough money to build something. Leave the city. We have enough crooks inside the city already. We don't need any more. Thank you.
That concludes those that signed up under items that are not on the agenda. Anyone else? All right, we'll go to the consent agenda. Anyone from council wish to have an item exempted? Hearing none?
Madam Mayor?
Yes?
I would move the approval of the consent agenda.
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Beltramini, seconded by Councilwoman Broomfield, that we approve all the consent agenda items at this time. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Kerwin?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes?
Councilman Beltramini?
Yes.
Broomfield?
Yes.
Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Motion passes. Council referrals are done. Council comments. Councilwoman Beltramini?
I have a couple of things. Mr. Zerlag, you've gotten a lot of abuse tonight, and I thank you for your service. This council decided to hire you, and you are our city manager, and we will work with you to make unpleasant decisions, and you can't dictate to us, but we thank you for your service, and thank you for being here. I just started.
That was left over from before.
The second thing is I wanted to remind everybody Troy Days is this weekend at Boland Park, and discount parking permits are still on sale and will be until lunchtime on Saturday at the community center. You can buy parking for the whole weekend for $6 ahead of time or $10 at the door, your choice. And for my colleagues, SEMCOG is having their outreach meetings in October, and you can go to the SEMCOG website. The one in Novi is the 13th, and then there's one in Macomb County that's also close to us on the 14th. And I can give you further information about that, but I wanted you to be aware that those things were coming. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Eisenbacher, did you?
I just wanted to follow up on the item from before, the suspend the rules so that we can excuse the absent member. So I'd like to make a resolution to suspend the City Council of the City of Troy's rules of procedure for order of the meeting.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Eisenbacher, seconded by Councilman Broomfield, that we suspend the rules to excuse.
Actually, not order the meeting, to add an item.
To add an item to excuse a council member. Go ahead. Move.
Okay. Vote.
Oh, Council. We'll vote on it after we vote on the suspending of the rules. Okay. Mrs. Bartholomew?
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilman Beltramini?
Yes.
Broomfield?
Yes.
Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
Motion passes. And Councilman Eisenbacher, you want to move the resolution now?
I'd like to move to excuse Councilman Howrlack for being absent because he's out of the county.
Support.
Moved by Councilman Eisenbacher, seconded by Councilman Fleming that we excuse Mayor Pro Tem Martin Howlack for being out of the county. Discussion? Vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Beltramini?
Yes.
Broomfield?
Yes.
Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Madam Mayor,
Councilwoman Kerwin?
will we be able to go back to council comment?
Yes, absolutely, because I have some too.
Okay.
So, Councilwoman Kerwin?
I was sorry to read that a strong activist for persons with disabilities passed away last week. Roger McCarville helped change the world for people with disabilities. He worked tirelessly to expand the civil rights for the 60 million Americans who have disabilities. He hosted the PBS program called The Wider World and the radio show Disabilities Today. Roger was a guest speaker here in Troy a number of times for our advisory committee with persons with disabilities, and he featured some of our members as guests on his radio show. Our thoughts go out to his widow Doris and the children and grandchildren. I had an opportunity to attend a couple really neat events this week. One was the annual meeting of the Troy Historical Society, at which 6 of the candidates running for council attended that, and it was an interesting forum to hear 6 of the 7 candidates running. It was also good to hear the many achievements of that dynamic group, a visionary group, who worked so hard to preserve our history and to build on the site. Also, this week was the ribbon cut for the Friends of the Troy Public Library bookshop. Excuse me, it's the gift shop. The bookshop is downstairs. The gift shop upstairs has new hours, Monday through Thursday, 12 to 8 p.m., and Fridays and Saturdays, 12 to 5 p.m., Sundays, 1 to 4. It's a beautiful shop. I think the city did a wonderful job working with the Friends to make it happen. John Lamorato, Steve Pilata, so many fine folks worked really, really hard with the Friends. It looks great. The shop now carries office supplies, which have been much needed for those of us who forget everything. So those will now be available. In addition, features quality books, DVDs. You can even get a quick gift and some cards. So it's a neat shop to come to. I want to thank the Friends, who are an all-volunteer nonprofit organization that promotes and supports the library and offers 400 programs that wouldn't take place without their support. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank the staff, Mrs. Bloom, Mrs. Bartholomew, and the rest who were involved with the brochure that's going to go out to the voters explaining the ballot proposals that are on in a clear and concise manner. I appreciate that. I know we were under a time crunch to get it done, and you did, so thank you for that. Also, I wanted to comment that there are 2 other items that are in the agenda under reports that are very important for council and for the citizens. That is J5, the executive summary on revenue projects, which is kind of scary because we thought we were going to get revenue for some things, but we are. So I'm sure we're going to talk about that when we have our meeting. The other thing is the response to the Free Press article about state fears worsening financial outlooks and the explanation of how that tallying and numbering occurred. Seems like we're in the perfect storm here of all the things coming at the same time, but with wise decision making we'll come out fine on the other side, but we have to go through some difficult times now. So I'm not going to ask any more about those reports right now other than to mention them. Now I am going to ask, are we doing a study item again tonight on maintenance code, or may we put it off? I don't know about you, but I've been towed out of here tonight.
If you put it off, my only request would be that it's put off subsequent to September 28th.
Mayor?
Who was that? Councilman Eisbacher?
I'd like to see the thing come to an agenda item to vote on. I've met with the staff. If we want to discuss it, I mean, there are answers to my questions shared with all of you. We've been working on this one a long time. it's now the job of council to make our decisions whether or not we want to include those sections and move forward.
Others? Councilman Beltramini?
Could we have a final draft as an information item, a G item, on the 28th, and then for vote on the 5th? Could we do that?
Yes.
Because that would give everybody a week to read it and study it.
We can do that.
A question?
Councilman Kerwin?
Mayor, through you, for Councilmember Eisenbacher, I know that we received a communication from the attorney regarding ex post facto. I wondered if that satisfied council members.
Mayor?
Councilman Eisenbacher?
This ends up coming down to an item of, there was a court case, the court decided in favor of the I can't remember if it's municipality or the state. I take a more conservative view of the Constitution, but it's not something that's going to be resolved between myself and the staff. It's a values for the whole council now.
So, excuse me.
Councilman Kerwin?
So I'm wondering, it doesn't sound like that would preclude the ability of council members to vote on this item. Is that correct? Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Here, Councilwoman Broomfield?
I would request in the draft, I spoke with our city attorney today, in the couple meetings that we've had, we've talked, or I've talked and others, enough about the process of going through the manager's office as an option prior to going in front of the Board of Appeals. And I would ask that she would include some of that language in the draft and come back to us. If we review the draft and we're fine with it or not fine with it, we'll vote on that at the next meeting.
Mrs. Bloom?
Mayor, I would just indicate I did speak with Councilwoman Broomfield today, and I believe that I understand where she's coming from. I believe that she wants to have additional language. At the last study session, there was discussion about changing the composition of the Building Code Board of Appeals, and then also having quarterly reports to council, so that if ordinance amendments needed to occur, that council would be apprised of where the activities were. I will need to do some research and see how we can add that additional layer that she's looking for, which is to have the manager serve as an appellate entity, because there are some complications that it cannot be one person who is not, you can't have one person as that intermediate appellate body. But I certainly am happy to look into what we can do, try and accommodate the concerns that you have raised.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Zierlein?
If that cannot be accomplished, perhaps in the alternative, one thing that we spoke about is that the manager would supplant his staff on the Building Board of Appeals, and any appeals through the Property Maintenance Code would still be going through the Building Board of Appeals, so it would be a subset of that appellate body.
Madam Mayor.
Councilwoman Kerwin?
And my recollection was at our study meeting, we talked about it being a procedure, that incorporating that process through a procedure. So maybe that's why the language wasn't included.
Councilman Beltramini?
I don't really want to vote on any part of this code on the 28th, because I think we will have a tendency to want to edit and get into it, and I don't want to add to that meeting on the 28th. Right. I think it's much, and Christina won't even be here, so it's her amendment to the code, so I think send it out for information, and then we can deal with it on the 5th when you're back.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilwoman Broomfield?
And I would agree with that. At least we can get a draft. I just want to see some language. I want to, you know, we can argue it at the table, or it may not pass, it may pass, but we discussed my point quite a bit. I'd really like to see some language come back.
And I would agree that it should not be on the 28th. With everything else, we have the meeting before, the regular meeting, which is going to be quick, and then the special meeting. I mean, I know it's important for us to do code maintenance, but I think the item, Mr. Zerlich, in your memo about the revenues and what we're going to do is crucial that we spend enough time and effort on that. And even though I know there are people that are interested in getting the code done, I don't see it as being as vital as the other.
However, we can accomplish both requests by having it be in final format as a G item with no discussion.
Right.
And also address maybe as a supplemental letter from the attorney on the appellate procedure.
Right. We do have our present things in place while we're waiting, but I'd also like, I know the council members want to have it before, but I think that in preparation for the 28th, that our thinking processes should be about what we're going to be doing at that meeting. I know we're going to get that other information there, but and I think we're going to have a big turnout of people. They're either going to send us stuff ahead or they're going to come to that meeting. So it'll probably be a long one again. Yes, Councilwoman Kerwin?
Speaking to that, I'm quoting Councilmember Eisenbacher, who talked about unintended consequences. Brought that up at the study session. We've gone to this new format as a resolution of the last one, where we've moved public comment. And I'm very uncomfortable having people wait until 11 o'clock to speak on an item that they came. It's just an unintended consequence of what happened. As a result, we had people who waited a long time. We took the entire agenda out of order. And I'm wondering if we might not reconsider again the idea of simply putting all public comment up early, let people speak on whatever it is that's on their mind, give them their time, one after another, so that we can hear it, and then move through the agenda after hearing that information. I think it honors the people who come to the meetings. To have people wait until as late as it is for us, I don't think it honors them.
Mayor?
Councilwoman Broomfield?
Not be going further, but I would support Councilwoman Kerwin in this. We both were supportive of the idea of hearing from those. I know of one gentleman that had to leave from the chamber. He had some good information to share. It just got too late for him. I saw another individual stand up, throw his paper out of frustration, walk out. I guess he changed his mind, came back in, but he was still frustrated. And, you know, we can get on one topic and talk for a couple hours because we have to. But these poor people have to sit and listen to it. So, you know, maybe that's something we can reconsider and bring in everything forward. Get through them. They can only do 5 minutes. It's not like they're going to get up and talk for an hour.
The only thing with doing it that way, then they cannot speak again when we come to that particular item. And for some people, they want to speak on the item just before we deliberate on it and vote on it. So just to give both sides of the coin here, you know. And tonight was very unusual. The towing thing just, as I said, I was towed out of here. So, but I don't think we're going to resolve that tonight. You're bringing it up so people could think about it?
Well, we were actually having a very good discussion last time about the idea of public comment.
Right.
And then a resolution was made, and it happened quickly without the ability. And I think having looked at what happened tonight, I think it's one of those unintended consequences, as I quote my friend.
Councilman Fleming?
Just for clarification, I think what you're proposing is a person gets up and speaks once. You have a time limit. You speak for anything they want to say in the public as well as items on the agenda.
Correct.
One time you speak once and you get all that in at one time, but still with a 5-minute limit to cover everything. That's what you're proposing. And where would you place it on the agenda?
Right up front.
Okay.
After, it has to come after public hearings.
Mayor.
And carryover items, right? Postponed items?
Right.
Can't come before then.
Again, try it.
Correct? Is that right, Mrs. Brethano?
It could come before postponed items if that's your desire.
But it has to be after carryover or public hearings.
It should be after public hearings. It could be in front of carryovers as well. Public
Right.
hearings is the only thing it needs to be.
You've got carryover items and then public hearings on this agenda.
Correct. That's the current format, but the only requirement would be the public hearings need to be first. Everything
Right.
else is up to your discretion.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Councilwoman Broomfield?
just for clarification, what I would support, and I think this is something we probably need to be thinking about and come back and decide not this late at night, but for clarification, I like the way it was before we changed it. People could get up, items not on the agenda, they spoke, they left, and then if they wanted to address an item on the agenda, it was brought forward. But I think this is a discussion, it's late, even for us now, but I do think it's a discussion we should have.
Okay, and we do have a closed session item on tonight to attend to.
Yeah, I agree, and I would like for Councilman Howard to be here when we do this, because he's the one that proposed this, and I'd hate to change something when he's not here. I think it would be fair.
Okay, any other items? We have a closed session. You want to move it, Councilman Eisenbacher?
Resolved that Troy City Council shall meet in closed session as permitted by Michigan Consolidated Law 15.268E, pending litigation, Troy versus, oh, I should have here. What? Musciando.
Do you have a second?
Support.
Moved by Councilman Eisenbacher, seconded by Councilwoman Broomfield, that we meet in closed session. Discussion? The vote, Mrs. Bartholomew?
Councilmember Broomfield?
Yes.
Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Fleming?
Yes.
Kerwin?
Yes.
Mayor Schilling?
Yes.
Councilor Beltramini?
Yes.
Okay, item recessed. We'll